Hey guys, tonight we're not sailing anywhere. No pirates, no boats, no mysterious barrels of salted fish doing whatever salted fish do. Instead, we're heading straight into one of the most unlikely stories history ever pulled off. How a handful of desert and steppe nomads, people with no cities, no marble statues, no fancy castles, somehow rose out of empty horizons and reshaped half the world before most empires even realized what was happening. Not the glossy textbook version, not the movie version where everyone has perfect hair. I mean the real version: dust, wind, cracked lips, sunburn, and the kind of determination you only get from living in a place where even the shade is judging you. But before we gallop directly into that, go ahead and like the video, and subscribe, but only if these slow, strange, sleep-friendly history dives actually help you unwind. If not, totally fine. Even the nomads didn't conquer every territory they aimed at, so I won't aim for your notification feed too aggressively either. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and what time it is for you right now. It's always 2 a.m. somewhere. And if you're here listening about nomads and world domination to fall asleep, you are absolutely in good company. Now dim those lights, switch on a fan for that soft white noise, get comfortable, and maybe tuck your feet in, not because of rats this time, but because a stray camel might wander by and assume your toes are edible desert plants. Let's pause for just a moment. Have you ever wondered what life was actually like for the people who came out of nowhere and conquered everything? No cities, no infrastructure, no supply chains, just families on horseback, tents that folded up in minutes, and a lifestyle so mobile that even modern travelers would beg for a break. How did they survive? How did they organize? How did they move so fast that empires with entire bureaucracies couldn't keep up? What did it feel like to grow up with the wind as your soundtrack and the horizon as your neighbor? Were they geniuses? Were they desperate? Were they simply so used to chaos that conquering the world felt like the next logical step? Tonight, we're going to drift into that world slowly and gently, not to glorify it, not to dramatize it, but to explore it the way sand explores your shoes, quietly, thoroughly, and somehow everywhere. So breathe in. Let the weight of the day fall away. And imagine a place where the sky feels too big, the land feels too empty, and yet somehow, everything begins. The story of how nomads conquered the world doesn't start with swords or battles, it starts with the land itself. The silence, the movement, the rhythm of hooves. The choice to survive when survival shouldn't have been possible. Settle in. Close your eyes if you want. And let's wander into the wind-scoured beginning. Chapter 1. The banner that rose from the sand. And now, let your breath settle as we drift into a world made of heat, horizon, and impossible beginnings. Because before empires carved their names into stone, before armies thundered across continents, before maps surrendered whole regions to a single color, there was silence. Picture this: a vast, desert panorama, endless, unbroken. The kind of landscape that stretches so far you start to wonder if the earth simply forgot to include anything else. The sun hangs above it all like a molten coin, heavy, bright, unforgiving. The sky wavers. The dunes breathe in slow, shimmering waves, their forms sculpted by a wind that has been repeating the same tired dance for centuries. At first glance, nothing moves. Nothing dares to move. This is the kind of heat that warns you gently and very seriously to think twice before trying anything ambitious with your afternoon. But then, something shifts. Just a flicker, a tiny disturbance in the curtain of rising heat. A shape creeping along the horizon, where sky and sand pretend to be the same thing. Slowly, it sharpens, grows, gathers definition. A banner, not ornate, not embroidered with gold thread or dragons or royal egos. Just a stark silhouette, simple, bold, carved against the brightness like a shadow that refuses to disappear. And behind that banner, figures begin to emerge. Riders, nomads. People born into landscapes that punish hesitation and reward only grit, speed, and instinct. People shaped not by luxury, but by wind, hardship, and the simple math of survival. Their horses move lightly across the sand, as if the dunes themselves are welcoming them, or at least stepping politely out of the way. These aren't soldiers in the traditional sense. No gleaming armor, no polished formations, no carefully constructed hierarchy drawn up by committees in stone buildings. Just lean riders wrapped in cloth and confidence, moving with the resi, purpose of people who have learned to trust the land even when the land doesn't always return the favor. And yet, this small cluster of wanderers, this handful of desert-born families and clans, will somehow ignite one of the most explosive rises to power the world has ever seen. Not because they planned it, not because they sought it, but because history sometimes plays favorites with the people who least expect it. The banner sways in the wind, a simple symbol that doesn't try to overwhelm or impress. It doesn't need to. The message it carries isn't spoken aloud. It lives in the riders themselves, in their movements, in the quiet certainty of people who have endured too much to fear anything new. The desert stretches beneath them like a living map, open, waiting, full of paths that no empire has claimed. They don't know it yet, not really, but they are about to redraw the world. Not with grand speeches, not with towering monuments, just with momentum, with unity. With the fierce clarity that comes from living on land where survival is earned every day. Their shadows stretch long across the sand, merging with dune and rock, becoming part of the landscape they will soon transform. And in this quiet moment, this breath before the storm, the desert holds its silence. It watches, it listens, it braces. Because from here, from heat and emptiness and a banner with no ornaments at all, a new world power is about to rise, unexpected, unstoppable, and carried forward by people who only ever wanted enough. Until history decided to give them everything. Breathe with the horizon. Let the dunes settle in your mind, and drift deeper into the story. Asterisk, asterisk, Chapter 2, The Scholar with a Lamp and a Map, not just a bad Netflix title, asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys, welcome back to yet another delightful detour into the treasure trove of mildly interesting history, more layered than your last attempt at making lasagna. Tonight, we're focusing on a somewhat peculiar figure in the early Islamic period. Picture this, a scholar, illuminated by a flickering lamp, poring over an ancient map, perhaps muttering to himself about how his latest pair of sandals could use a little more cushioning. Oh, the drama. But let's be honest, if you're anything like me, the last time you tried reading a map, it was accidentally unfolding it upside down and wondering why your car was headed straight for the neighbor's hedge. Spoiler alert, maps back then didn't get Wi-Fi. But wait, before we dive into this world of lamplit brilliance and epic conquests, can I ask you to take a moment to reflect? Have you ever spent too long contemplating your life choices while staring at a salad? Yes, strange as that sounds, it's akin to pondering the fate of an empire in dim light. Why did that one guy always insist on trying to conquer the world before breakfast? Does he know about the magic of a good scone? So, dim those lights, make sure your cozy blanket is snugly wrapped around you unless you forgot to get it out of the dryer, in which case, well, good luck with that. Now, let's hop through the space-time continuum right into the thick of it. Congratulations. You've just woken up in 632 CE, where history is unfolding faster than your friend trying to explain their latest dating fiasco. As you adjust your eyes in this new time and place, the first thing that strikes you is the sense of vigor, both in the air and in people's spirits. But it's not just any excitement, we're talking about scholarly exhilaration, an effervescence that often goes unappreciated amid the clanging swords and booming proclamations of empire. You shake off this initial disorientation, peering closer at a lone scholar, hunched over an ancient map. It's kind of like the original, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? But far less fun if you desire jazz hands and catchy jingles. Imagine it, the scent of damp parchment wafts through the room, tangling with the oily aroma of the flickering lamp. Can you feel that? The soft crackle of the flame murmurs to you secrets of statecraft, impermanence, and the perfect baklava recipe. He's clutching that map as if it's the last milk chocolate in the house just before a family gathering. If only I could just find the right way to take over this territory, and maybe pick up a few candies on the side, he seems to muse, as if the soul of every empire rests upon the accuracy of his scribbles. The scholar, let's call him Times Almapicus asterisk, bears an uncanny resemblance to your great-uncle Bob, who once got lost trying to take a shortcut to the grocery store. With lantern light flickering around him like a makeshift disco in a history book, Almapicus scratches his beard, contemplating how to link various tribal groups under one banner. It's like herding cats, but instead of cats, you're wrangling fiercely independent nomads who just want to throw a good barbecue without imperial interference. How do I convince them to unite over spiced lamb? Clearly, I need an excellent pitch. You imagine him pondering, and you almost chuckle before remembering you're in a serious history moment. He glances around the room, now and then pausing to grimace at the chaotic notes sprawled about. Why didn't I just type it all out in a proper format? You hear him mumble. In a world with no spell check, note-taking is definitely more of a guessing game, isn't it? You consider the poor soul's fate as he tries to communicate delicate political alliances with an artistic flair that often manifests as a wild assortment of doodles and arrows, pointing to discard instead of oh. And if you pay close attention, you'll notice the irony swirling about Almapicus like a well-mixed cocktail at a retirement party. Here's a man uncovering complexities of governance with the same nonchalant ease you display while putting together IKEA furniture. Did you times really read the instructions? Or did you wing it and pray you could duct tape the whole assembly into something resembling the picture on the box? One-eyed pots of ink stand as loyal sentinels on the table, and you can only imagine the number of times he exclaims, "Why did I think I could just use olive oil as ink?" And yet, every now and then, amidst all that chaos, you detect a flicker of brilliance in the way he navigates political currents and shifting allegiances. You see a man uniting clans with the faintest glimmer of faith, perhaps thinking, if the Byzantine Empire can fall over a game of politeness, why can't I try and charm them with a poncered little kindness? But here's where things start to twist, like an overcooked noodle in a spaghetti bath. His success emerges from a captivating cocktail of mobility, faith, and the incredible weaknesses of overextended empires. While the great Sasanian and Byzantine powers are waist-deep in their bureaucratic quagmires, Almapicus dreams of a world held together not by a central authority, but by relationships smoother than his grandma's mashed potatoes. Amidst this puzzling maze of history, you can only sigh dreamily. As the lamp flickers one last time, and the map settles into an endless scroll of possibilities, you realize it's the very human quarrels and aspirations that make history profoundly relatable, like finding a chocolate stash socked away for a rainy day. As your eyes grow heavier and sleep begins to cradle you gently, keep in mind that the dialogue you drop into isn't an extended lecture, but an echo of ages before an era deemed too sleepy to engage. Once again, the universe forgives you, encouraging you to snuggle deeper into your plush blanket and drift into the armchair of history, where even the fiercest warriors had to pause and ask, "Did I remember to bring snacks?" So sleep tight, dear dreamer, and perhaps in your slumber, you'll venture through time just like Almapicus, lamp in hand, all the while plotting how to unite tribes and snag that last piece of baklava. Chapter 3. The overworked, underappreciated heroes of Byzantine warfare. Let's talk about battles, but not the kind where brave heroes ride off into the sunset after saving the day. No, we're diving into the sweaty, grumpy reality of the Byzantine army in 632 CE, who felt more like overworked waiters at a banquet where the guests had all gone rogue. You're one of them, donning your heavy, ornate armor, a couple's combination of fashion statement and human oven. You can almost smell the metallic tang in the air from all that armor, mixed with the distinct scent of sweat and slightly scorched hopes. Post-nachos and Super Bowl party vibe, but with more swords. You look around and surprise, everyone else seems equally as exhausted. Your feathery plume isn't doing much more than flopping lazily in this weariness-ridden scene. Honestly, it feels like a limp chastity belt for your head. Decades spent fighting the Sasanian Persians have turned what was once a formidable army into a grumbling assembly of weary warriors, all wondering if a full body massage could possibly replace unreasonably high expectations of glory. You can almost see the thought bubbles over their helmets. Should have taken that job as a goat herder instead. Forget about fighting. Right now, even putting one foot in front of the other feels like a sprint up a muddy hill, laden with a pot roast made by a particularly bad cook. Swordplay, please. You couldn't even wield a spoon properly at this point, let alone your sword. Why anyone would choose to string together more than 3 battle strategies when simply surviving the day feels like a full-time job is beyond your comprehension. A shift at the local tavern selling questionable ale. Sign you up. The only thing you've conquered is the art of looking tired while carrying 10 pounds of armor as if you were asked to stroll elegantly in a Tuscan vineyard. Now, picture this. You're slumped next to a campfire that's barely providing warmth, trying to stabilize your brain cells with a vaguely nutritious meal, think thin, gruel, minus the excitement of a carnival. Ever tried drinking broth made out of the afterthoughts from last Tuesday's stew? You can practically hear the historical jokes flying about how grateful you should be to not be a vegetarian in this army. Oh yay, sustenance, is that a sprout I see? Outside the cozy cacophony of your pungent ruminations, the Sasanian Persians are waging war with a fervor that suggests they're taking their regular grievances and turning them into a full seasonal menu. You wonder, do they suffer from chronic recruitment problems? Probably not, considering they fight like they owe rent somewhere. And then there's the discount, attrition. You find it rather humorous that casualties has become a polite euphemism for, hey, your buddy might be taking a dirt nap. There's this horrific, relatable joke circulating the camp. At least you're not dead, you're the lucky one. It's a classic giggle fest, reminding everyone that just being alive is a win at this stage. Let's take a moment to dwell on the enchanting sensation of armored chafing. You know, the kind of discomfort that makes you consider running back to your mother to ask if you could just wear pajamas instead. Instead, here you are, locked in this eternal battle against itchy wool and metallic nudges in places you'd rather not discuss. After all, tactical chafing placement is not found in strategic military manuals, though it definitely should be considered a life skill. Now, your fellow soldiers are basically a colorful cast of characters. There's the guy who swears he saw a goat pass by wearing a helmet, probably a prankster in another life. Let's not forget about the midnight snorer who may or may not be single-handedly inviting all ley-line spirits to join the fray. You're all engaged in a silent battleground of annoyance, where sleep feels less like a refuge and more like a distant dream. A dream where being tired is just a witty analogy for, I'm in the wrong job. So, as your eyes flutter and your brain contemplates solving that ancient riddle of East versus West, remember this. Empathy is key in any battle. You might not be able to control your dog-snoring comrades or halt time to let your chafing body heal, but you can at least secure a solid position on the battlefield of rest. Trade military strategy for dreams filled with fluffed pillows, gourmet meals, and maybe, just maybe, a goat in armor too. Ah, the irony of war and weariness. If only the Byzantine generals had seen it that way. After all, who needs glory when you could be at home, not fighting off existential dread with a sword? Who knows? Maybe one day, they'll turn the saga of tired legions and disgruntled soldiers into a melodrama. Now times would be a hit at the local amphitheater, assisted by a live band of goats. So close your eyes, drift into slumber, and remember, while the battlefield might demand your presence, your dreams are most certainly calling you home. *** Chapter 4. The cracked mosaic of you had one job, ***. Ah, the year 632 CE, a time when empires were falling faster than good intentions at a dinner party. And what symbolizes this tragic decline better than a cracked stone mosaic displaying the tattered flags of the Byzantine and Sasanian empires? It's like the world's least motivational mural, an artistic reminder that sometimes, being a conqueror is slightly less glamorous, and a bit more oops. We collectively mismanaged our resources. As you gaze upon this grand mosaic, albeit a little more fragmented than a jigsaw puzzle, after a particularly rowdy family game night, you might wonder what on earth could lead two powerful empires into mutual ruin and financial depletion. Spoiler alert. It wasn't just bad investments in stone-faced marketplaces. They had wrangled themselves into an exhausting tug-of-war that left both empires high and dry, or, in this case, high and cracked. Much like that ceramic mug you're trying to convince yourself is still usable because it holds sentimental value. Imagine you're standing amidst these haunting relics, feeling the craggy stones beneath your feet. Each one feels like a melodramatic whisper from history, saying, look, we tried, but alas, poor communication and resource misallocation took the spotlight. The bright blue tiles of the Byzantine flag are sagging beside the muddy browns and greens of Sasanian banners, an ensemble that screams, can you believe this was once a thing of beauty? It's as if the universe saw fit to throw them a curveball, and they promptly hit it back with a resounding, what now? Before you can even process it, you realize that the only thing holding this artistic disaster together is stubborn hope, like a family trying to finish a puzzle with half the pieces missing. In this arena of regal regret, let's pause to ponder, what really happened here? Why were these grand empires, once towering over the known world like overzealous homeowners with too many garden gnomes, reduced to this broken spectacle? Maybe it was management's lack of foresight paired with a touch of stubbornness that led to their cascading demise. Possibly bad signage, like, this way to victory, turning out to be the wrong route entirely. You might think of the Byzantine azurite tiles glimmering at you from the ruins like a glib friend with misplaced optimism, whispering sweet nothings about how eventually things will get better. Meanwhile, the Sasanian flag hangs limply. Oops. Looks like they put off chasing down their financial issues a bit too long. Ever had that one roommate who insists they'll definitely pay for their share of takeout next time? You're right in thinking that the Sasanian Empire could have used a serious talk about budgeting and group projects. While you drift deeper into this historical haze, the sound of clanging shields and the smell of perspiration from our beleaguered soldiers fills your senses, triggering a collective shrug from both armies. It's less of a conquest and more of an unnecessary social gathering. Think awkward family reunions, where distant relatives argue over who brings the potato salad. Conversations quickly spiral into resentments over military strategies that faltered as easily as a cheap napkin in a rainstorm. As we wallow in this avant-garde comedy of errors, let's take a moment to consider the emotional weight of that cracked mosaic. The stonework reminds you that both empires spent years fighting over land that, in hindsight, maybe no one needed at all. It's like haggling over the last piece of pizza when it turns out the topping you chose was pineapple, and you just wanted a good night's sleep. And what about the poor foot soldiers? Picture them, the true stars of this tragicomedy, tightly strapped into armor that feels cooler in theory but weighs as much as your grocery list after a daring shopping spree. They stand before the tattered flags, probably thinking, I put in so many hours, and for what? It's as if their days were filled with endless grunt work at a job that had no appreciation, standing in battle lines while some fancy generals took turns sipping wine and arguing about strategy, completely forgetting about the human cost. Congratulations. You've traded in your dreams for good old-fashioned struggle while wearing 10 pounds of regret. The soldiers paint a grim picture as they huddle together, discussing ways to salvage the situation. The punchline: it's hard to salvage anything when your morale is lower than a snake's belly in a wagon rut. So, as night falls softly on this crumbled history, let's drown out the clamor of the past with visions of cozy quilts, warm cocoa, and perhaps an absurdly armor-clad goat. Because who needs the stress of warfare when you could be dreaming of goat yoga instead? And as you close your eyes, imagine those weary soldiers, finding a way to lay down their burdens, giggling over the failed campaigns like silly buddies, sharing an inside joke. After all, while the empires may have cracked, the laughter or at least humor about their misdeeds remains timeless. Let it cradle you into a sound sleep, where the weight of history lightens into dreams filled with joyously mismatched empires. Asterisk asterisk, Chapter 5, The Caravan of Conspicuous Overconfidence. Asterisk asterisk. Hey guys, welcome to a journey that's about as relaxing as a hot stone massage in a room full of raccoons. Tonight, we're diving into the wild, woolly world of military conquest during the early Islamic period, an era where a handful of nomads did something that would make even a mildly impressive tapas restaurant feel embarrassed. Yes, we're talking about the time of the Rashidun Caliphate. Now, before you snuggle into your blankets like their personal bodyguards, let's take a moment to think about this whole historical endeavor. Have you ever considered what it's like to march into a land full of people who just want to enjoy their midday snack without being interrupted? Ever wondered if generals had a secret side gig as choreographers with all that marching around? Or what if cartographers were just artists, hopelessly trying to turn battle plans into abstract art? The possibilities are endless, my friend. But first, dim the lights, put on a fan, and get comfy. Honestly, you'd probably be more comfortable than the soldiers we'll meet. Congratulations. You've just woken up in 632 CE, surrounded by a caravan that's not only ruled by enthusiasm but also a slight case of underwhelming numbers. Welcome to the early Islamic army, where the bold march under the guiding principles of faith, unity, and perhaps a smidge of miscalculation. Picture this. The endless expanse of sun-baked desert stretches, as far as the eye can see. The heat radiates upwards in shimmering waves, and if you squint just right, you might even catch a mirage that's laughing at the very concept of thirst. This isn't a normal getaway, it's an epic saga of a caravan of convert and conquer merchants, wielding banners that flap like disgruntled office memos during a particularly windy day. Now, somewhere in the distance, you spot a towering Byzantine general, let's call him Lord Hairdo, who's peering down at you through a ridiculously ornate golden spyglass. I mean, we're talking about a guy who uses a fancy tube to check out a few scouts like he's trying to identify if they still owe him money. He must have a quite inflated sense of self, thinking, "Ha, how quaint. Look at those few overzealous souls under my imposing gaze. Every fiber of his dramatic cape swishes victoriously, as he chuckles at the seemingly pitiful gathering below. To him, the Islamic army might seem like a bake sale gone awry, yet here they are, equipped with a fervor that could light up the Sahara, and believe me, the last thing you want is an argument in front of a starving crowd. Meanwhile, in the ranks below, tens of determined nomads are belting out slogans and battle cries that sound suspiciously like they've been borrowed from hip slogans heard at modern seminars. Together, we believe, they shout, while adjusting the sun-bleached fabric wrapped around their heads. And let's be honest, this looks a lot less fearsome legion, and more like an awkward family reunion with plenty of dish sharing. Some might even be chatting about the best tips for boiling sand into something resembling a gourmet meal. Who knew that military strategy required cooking skills, too? As they march onward, you can almost hear the internal monologues echoing in their heads. Each soldier embodies that classic blend of excitement and ambivalence, thinking, if we win, legendary status awaits, and if we lose, let's not talk about that embarrassing situation during battle. And I must say, their camaraderie is sturdy, even if their formation looks like a confused line dance at a wedding reception. The atmosphere is thick with sweat, which, let's not lie, smells about as pleasant as a leather workshop in August. And the air is punctuated by the sound of hooves on parched ground. You've got the camels trudging along, making their own contributions to the ancient soundtrack of life, a series of grunts and less than subtle whines that can only be treasured among true friends. As Lord Hairdo looms above, a gust of wind sends a delightful stream of dust spiraling through the air, prompting your caravan comrades to squint and cough, looking like the world's worst mime troupe, attempting to interpret the concept of despair. It's like being at a modern-day festival, except instead of hot dogs, they have swords and shields, and no one is happy to see the local art installation. Now, the Byzantine general believes he's facing nothing more than a minor inconvenience. But just as he lifts his golden spyglass back for another dramatic flourish, the reality hits him harder than a pie in the face. Those few nomads beneath his overconfident glare are a simmering force, with plans emerging quicker than a sales pitch at a visit to a used car lot. The caravan is not merely looking to introduce some fun medieval banter over a card game. They have ambitions that extend well beyond simple trade. They are planning to redefine the very idea of conquest by combining inspiration, faith, and perhaps just the right amount of luck, reminiscent of an ill-fated lottery ticket. As you settle into this whirlwind of historical hilarity, one truth becomes clear. This isn't just about armies colliding. It's about dreams, ambition, and the audacity to take on a world that may not be ready for them. And somewhere deep within the warm sands, laughter resonates across time, letting you know that whether through victory or failure, the spirit of this caravan will always remain traveling onward, one absurd misadventure at a time. So close your eyes, chuckle softly, and let the light-hearted victories of history rock you to a peaceful sleep with visions of an epic caravan, absurd generals, and camaraderie carried on the wind. Because at the end of the day, laughter is the real conqueror, even in a world ruled by nomads and misguided expectations. Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 6, The Camel Whisperers of the Desert, asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys. Welcome to a cozy corner of history that's softer than a cloud, made of cotton candy, and a bit more stable than your last attempt at adulting. Tonight, we're delving into the sun-baked realm of Bedouin nomads, who spent their days tending to noble camels like they were the world's largest, most temperamental house pets. Picture it now, 632 CE. And we're not just talking code words for an ancient Airbnb setup. This is where survival, camaraderie, and a pinch of mischief combine beneath a vast, twinkling sky. Have you ever stopped to wonder what a camel thinks while ponderously chewing its cud? Or, more importantly, do you think they have beef, pun intended, with being called the ships of the desert? Like, would they sulk about it at sunset as they adjust their saddles? Do they roll their eyes when asked to carry another load, or think, seriously, again with the whole carry the weight of the world shtick? Honestly, if camels could talk, we'd probably hear more sass than a reality show reunion. But before we plunge into this sandy sanctuary, let's adjust the lighting, angle that floor fan toward your face, and snuggle in, because congratulations, you've just awakened in a bustling Bedouin camp, where a handful of tough as nails nomads are going about their day, all while their camels, yes, those snacky, cranky creatures, might be quietly contemplating the meaning of life, or plotting a subtle coup against their humans, for one too many, climb on my back, commands. Imagine the surroundings. The golden grains of sand shimmer like they've been dusted with fairy glitter under the brilliant sun. You can almost feel the heat wrap around you like an overly enthusiastic hug from your relatives. And as you breathe in the scent of warm earth mixed with a hint of sage, you can see the nomads preparing to tackle a day full of more serious camel-related business than you could ever imagine. Let's take a moment to appreciate our protagonists, the camels. Of all the animals that could have been chosen as the right hand of nomadic hospitality, why camels? Imagine suggesting that, at a pet adoption meeting, yes, I'll take a camel, please. They smell a bit, have a tendency to spit when annoyed, and by the way, they'll probably ruin half of my rugs. A bold choice, for certain. But think about it. Camels are quite the survivalists themselves. They can drink gallons of water in one go, survive off scanty vegetation like champion dumpster divers, and hold grumpiness down to an art form. Whenever one of the Bedouins approaches to check in on them, you can see the camels bobbing their heads, as if saying, "Oh, you again. What do you want? Stable for me? Think again." Now picture the Bedouins, those savvy caretakers, deftly wrapping their hands around the camel's reins like they're prepping for an Olympic event. You lean in closer, careful, not to spook the creatures, as one of the nimble nomads brushes the soft, coarse fur of a glorious beast named Abdullah, who is giving off a vibe that screams, "Is this really necessary? Can't I just sit and enjoy the sunset instead?" With deft fingers, the Bedouins check the camels' saddles, making adjustments, readying them for another day of hump it like you mean it across the desert dunes. After all, keeping these camels happy is crucial when your daily commute involves crossing endless stretches of dramatic sand, where accidents might entail accidentally swallowing a mouthful of sand that tastes suspiciously like dread and disappointment. And as they work, their chatter dances in the air, a symphony of amusing anecdotes about how Abdullah once glared at a passing tourist who had the audacity to pet him during a crucial snack time. You can almost picture the Bedouins laughing, exchanging tales that might sound like, "Remember that time Abdullah decided to take a detour into an empty tent in search of dates?" Classic. Now, let's take a detour from our camel antics to consider the basics of Bedouin survival. Out here, you might think bringing along a French press and a good book would do the trick, right? Wrong. Instead, imagine these clever nomads must channel their inner alchemy, coaxing life out of barley and occasionally swiping a few curious plants to keep their concoctions somewhat thrilling. The food is as delicate as your relationship with your neighbor's cat, unexpected and occasionally requiring some intense negotiation. Ah, the communal meals. They gather around a fire, a blend of delicious smells swirling together like the world's weirdest potpourri. There's nothing quite like a flatbread that's slightly burnt on the outside but incredibly soft on the inside. It gets passed around like that one dish at a potluck everyone suddenly craves but doesn't really know why. It's a culinary experience that leaves you wondering if you could recreate it in your own kitchen, or if you'd just end up in a duel with the smoke alarm. But wait, it's not all work and giggles. Managing a caravan requires precision akin to herding cats, camels, specifically. You'll soon understand how a wayward camel, fueled by its own delightful stubbornness, can turn a dignified journey into a series of slapstick episodes rivaling your last family reunion. Picture a Bedouin pointing in frustration as Abdullah decides to go rogue and trudge off after a particularly enticing mirage that looks shockingly like a fancy buffet. These camels are evidence of resilience, hardy, faithful companions that have shared countless trials and travails, though it must be said, they are far less dramatic than your average house cat. Still, the bond is undeniable, and it's a sight to behold when one of the nomads croons to Abdullah, offering scratches behind the ear like a seasoned hairstylist attending to a discerning client. "Don't worry, we've got this." They seem to murmur in comforting tones, as though they were comforting a toddler headed for nap time. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting a warm glow that makes even the desert sand look like a luscious carpet, you feel a sense of peace enveloping the camp. Here lies the harmony between man and beast, laughter echoing through the realm of resilient nomads. And it's clear that in the cosmic dance of history, these camels are not merely vessels, they symbolize endurance and unity. So, with a gentle chuckle, let yourself drift deeper into slumber as you imagine the mildly absurd antics of Bedouins, the nonchalant camels, and the soaring tales born from a life lived in balance with the vast, sun-kissed wilderness. Remember, like the comically complex relationship between a nomad and their camel. Sometimes life is about the journey, the laughter, and the unexpected detours you take along the way. Asterisk asterisk. Chapter 7. The Sunstreak Standoff. Asterisk asterisk. Hey guys. Welcome back to a time and place as chaotic as your last family gathering, A.D. 632, to be precise. Tonight, we're diving deep into the whirlwind world of the early Islamic warriors, whose grit and a sprinkle of wonder allowed them to stand against foes like a toddler facing the last cookie in the jar. Imagine a battalion of formidable figures, weathered, fierce, and just a little bit salty from enduring relentless sandstorms and the blazing sun. Because, let's be real, when you're in the Arabian desert, sunscreen is more of a luxury item than a necessity, and anyone who says otherwise clearly hasn't spent 2 minutes in the great outdoors. But before we roll into this sandy saga, a quick reminder to give us a thumbs up and subscribe only if you're having a great time, mind you. There's no pressure. It's not like we're hanging a "please subscribe" banner above a giant bowl of hummus. So, let's dim those lights, set your fan to its mildly refreshing setting, and cozy up as we think about the existential questions plaguing our warrior friends. Ever tried to keep cool while wearing heavy armor in the desert heat? Is a camel's spitting distance significantly worse than your neighbor's lawnmower at 6 in the morning? And why do most people think a headscarf resembles a fashion statement instead of critical sun protection? Congratulations! You've just woken up amidst the turmoil of A.D. 632, where every sand grain feels like a little reminder of the scorching sun, and your closest ally is likely a very opinionated camel. Imagine this. The sun has taken on a cheeky glint in the sky, as though to say, "Today, I'll bake you like a loaf of flatbread." Squinting through the haze of desert heat, you find yourself face to face with a rugged warrior, his sun-kissed skin etched with the history of 1,000 sunrises and a few too many awkward encounters with sandstorms. His eyes are a mix of fury, wisdom, and the strong desire to not step on a rogue cactus. He's wearing a headscarf like his life depends on it. It probably does. Nothing says fighter like a hefty dose of fashion sense and a dash of practicality. As you take a moment to admire the warrior's helmet fashioned lovingly from whatever metal they could scrounge up, you can almost hear him shrugging off questions about its weight with a dry chuckle. "It keeps my head safe. Plus, it doubles as a fancy cake stand during the rare good party," he seems to imply. His grin reveals the truth of countless battles, a tantalizing life spiced with equal measures of camaraderie and calamity. As you soak in all this rugged charm, the wind whispers through the desert sand with a melody reminiscent of a seasoned rep's sales pitch. It swirls around you, tickling your skin and inviting you to imagine. Just think, these warriors weren't just donning sword and shield for fashion trends. They emerged from the gritty grit of the desert as champions of the Rashidun Caliphate, starting off with little more than their grit, dreams, and occasionally, the very odd snack pilfered from a passing market setup. Now picture the battle strategy. These hardened warriors had to employ ingenuity right out of a video game. You prioritize positions, manage your resources, and pretend to take notes from the camels when they play rock, paper, scissors. It's all part of the plan. Seriously, it's like every strategy meeting turned into an extreme episode of Time's Survivor asterisk. Can you imagine a warrior gathering his troops, saying, "All right team, we're going to take on an army. Who's in?" In response, all eyes turn to the camels, who collectively blink and seem to ponder their lives like introspective teenagers. "I thought I signed up for a nice stroll to the oasis." One camel seems to communicate through a resigned sigh, while the warriors are busy strategizing. You can almost hear shattered dreams of conquest echo across the desert when one of the men utterly misjudges the distance to the next well. "Syrup," I said, "left turn at the cactus. Not the one that looks like Uncle Ahmed." And there he is, saying both sorry and smiling sheepishly to the local fauna as they sip away at what's left of their last dregs of water. Life in the desert required quick thinking, rapid problem solving, and excessive hydration, which is honestly relatable if you've ever felt parched after slurping down one too many salty snacks during a Netflix binge. These warriors were legends, and just like them, you can feel the excitement of a life that danced with laughter even among the greatest of challenges. Now, let's fast forward to after a tough day of battling enemies and perhaps a snack debate over dried figs versus lentils. As the sun sets, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, these early Islamic warriors gather around the fire. They swap stories of valor and bumbling mishaps, fueled by laughter and companionship, much like one finds in a cozy corner of a pub after a rough week at work. And just like that, a life and bond between them is forged stronger than the armor they wear. So, close your eyes, and let yourself drift into dreams filled with Sun Crew warriors, bewildered camels, and the ever-present challenge of camaraderie beneath a melting sun, each moment a reminder that humor, like armor, is best shared in a swirling dance of absurdity and laughter as they navigate this unruly desert, much like you navigating through the whims of your own everyday adventures. And as the night cloaks the desert in shadows, you're left to ponder. Life isn't always about the battles we face. Sometimes, it's the comedy that unfolds along the way that truly makes it legendary. Asterisk asterisk, Chapter 8, The Desert Dash, asterisk asterisk. Hey guys, ready to travel back in time faster than you can say, what's the Wi-Fi password? Tonight, we're strolling through the sun-scorched, camel-ridden lands of A.D. 632. Specifically, we're hopping into the whirlwind world of the Rashidun Caliphate, where a handful of spirited nomads turned out to be more than just tacky tourism aficionados. They created a legacy that would make even the toughest army rethink their career choices. Picture this: sweeping, expansive deserts, where the most serious debates were on how to prevent a camel spitting contest from ruining dinner. Spoiler alert, it rarely worked. Before we dive into this sandy saga, much like diving into an elegant swimming pool of lukewarm soup, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. If you're enjoying the ride, that is because, if you're not, well, I'd prefer the comment section didn't turn into an extravagant dessert buffet of angry reactions. Thank you very much. So, grab your favorite pillow, dim those lights, turn on your fan to that mildly refreshing setting, and let's settle in, shall we? Ever wondered how these warrior types managed to keep their cool while sprinting across scorching sands? Did they ever complain about sand in, uncomfortable places? Did armor pinch as much as those unyielding gym tights you promised would fit after washing? And, on a much more serious note, how on earth did they retain their sanity while riding camels that could fall asleep mid-gallop? Well, my dear listeners, congratulations. You've just woken up in 632 A.D. amidst a cacophony of hoofbeats and sandstorms. Imagine the scene. The sun bearing down like a relentless critic known for fashioning comforting remarks about your sunburn, while a department of durable cavalry riders and camel-happy nomads is tearing across the flat expanse of the Arabian desert. This isn't your typical Sunday drive, it's more like the world's first extreme sports race, where the stakes are higher than your uncle's barbecue sauce recipe. The cavalry and their trusty camels move at a breathtaking speed, a dust-plumed trail trailing behind them like an overzealous confetti cannon gone rogue. I mean, forget the high-speed chases in movies, this is times real times life. They're zooming across terrain more featureless than a pancake left under the sun for too long. As you breathe in the warm, possibly slightly sweaty air, the scent of sandalwood and adventure fills your nostrils. Who knew being an early Islamic warrior involved so much aroma? You can hear the rhythmic clops of hooves echoed by the soft grumbling of camels, who, let's admit it, seriously have opinions about their career choices. Ever find yourself questioning your life while waiting in line at the DMV? That's basically every camel in the desert, as these adrenaline-ridden riders rush by. I signed up for a leisurely stroll, not a desert drag race. They seem to do grunt, rolling their big eyes, as if to say, what's next? A family reunion at the oasis. Now, let's talk about the strategy, oh boy. These warriors weren't just gallivanting about willy-nilly, they were masters of hitting the ground running. They could shift gears faster than your favorite coffee shop barista when they spice up your order for the 5th time. Their battle tactics involved rapid mobility, much to the chagrin of their bemused foes. Imagine looking up from your sandbag and seeing these disciplined nomads swooping down on you like an overzealous delivery drone. Are they actually up there? Or is it just my craving for a sandwich? Ever picture a commander calling his troops to attention? Okay warriors, today's agenda: go fast, hit hard, and try not to lose any limbs on the way. Also, who's up for some falafel later? Yes, these brave souls made light work of the enemy, often right after they'd shared the latest tips on proper camel grooming techniques. Because nothing says battle ready like a well-brushed dromedary, right? And let's get real for a second. For these early Islamic warriors, keeping hydrated was crucial. The last thing they needed was to face an enemy while feeling like a saltine stuck in a desert pantry. Dude, did you see how far we've gone? I'm parched. Get me a fresh date, and quick. Each stop meant a frantic race for the nearest well, often turning into events comparable to Black Friday shopping sprees. It's a competitive world out there, even among those staying suave on a two-hump journey. Picture this: a sandy oasis, complete with the freshest dates, and there's a bunch of warriors doing exactly what every legendary folklore warrior does, arguing over the last piece of fruit, while reminiscing about the time Muhammad, peace be upon him, told a joke even their camels didn't find funny. I'm telling you, it went a little like, how many camels does it take to change a light bulb? None. They just accept it's dark. Cue the laughter and a collective shake of heads as the desert sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky with vibrant hues, all while ensuring no one accidentally steps in their own camel's personal deposits. These warriors carry on, laughing together amidst the wild winds and horrific sandstorms. You can almost feel the camaraderie growing, solidifying friendships not only forged in battles but also in the laughter shared over the absurdities of life on the move through the Sahara. So let yourself drift into visions of these nomadic legends, catching their breath over stories of the day's absurd antics, content in the knowledge that sometimes it's not just about the victories. It's about the ridiculousness of trying to face the world on your own terms, one dromedary at a time. And as the night envelops the vast desert, remember, adventure isn't solely found in glory, but also in the snickers and joy traveled along the sandy path. Chapter 9. The Byzantine balderdash. The Byzantine legions. Picture this: a legion trudging through sun-bleached rocky terrain like a troop of overqualified accountants on a team-building hike. That's right, folks. We're diving into the Byzantine Empire in the decades following 632 CE, where logistics was not just a science, but an art form. An art form marred by the sheer volume of awkwardly positioned carts and infantry that resembled an army of softly rolling boulders. So, make yourself comfy, and let's explore these warriors who, somehow, managed to march through time with all the grace of a walrus on stilts. You might wonder, how did such a distinguished legion manage to move goods across these brutal terrains? Between you and me, I'll tell you a little secret. They didn't. Well, not very well anyway. Imagine dragging a cart as heavy as your cousin's excuses for not attending family reunions through jagged rocks and heat so intense that it could make a lizard reconsider its life choices. It's like trying to roll a giant, armored burrito over a Lego landscape, exceedingly difficult and frequently disastrous. Let's talk about their armor. I mean, who told them that wearing thousands of pounds of metal was a good idea? Every step they took sounded like an orchestra of clinks and clangs, an unintended overture that served mainly to attract every pot-bellied wild boar in sight. It was as if they were saying, "Hey there, unsuspecting wildlife. Here we are, gallantly failing our way across the earth." You can practically hear the boars giggling, wondering if one of the clanking knights was carrying a snack or if their armor was just a shiny invitation to dinner. And don't even get me started on their carts. These weren't your hip, sleek delivery trucks that smoothly hum along the highway. No, these carts were lumbering beasts, like tortoises that decided they wanted to be furniture. They creaked and groaned, making noises that could wake the ancient gods themselves. If they didn't get stuck in the dust, they were probably taking their time contemplating the meaning of life. Is there more to existence than just sitting here and not moving? As the Byzantine army chaotically maneuvered through shallows and slants, one must imagine the orders flying like confetti at a wedding. Move left. No, your other left. Oh, now you've lost the wheel. Every clumsy turn caused the soldiers to shuffle like penguins slipping on ice, trying to remain upright while their precious cargo lurched chaotically about. It was the most extravagant game of Tetris you could ever imagine, except instead of fitting pieces into a neat row, they were tossing everything together with no real plan in place, and a prayer that their only valuables weren't flung into the next universe. And don't forget about the camels, you might think. Well, there were no camels in the Byzantine army. They seemed to have misplaced their dromedary connection. It felt like showing up to a barbecue without the burgers. Instead, these soldiers relied heavily on their trusty steeds, though, let's be real. Those horses were probably wondering why they had to carry something akin to a mobile armory down rocky pathways, while feeling every rock and pebble like a personal betrayal. Imagine the commander of these brave souls surveying the scene before him. Alright everyone, remember, the key to victory lies in mobility and surprise. Also, please try to avoid rolling your leg into that cartwheel. We need you intact. And don't even think about using the snack break excuse more than twice. The last time we did that, we lost one too many apples to the local wildlife. And oh, the trail they left behind. Sand and dirt mixed with the occasional unfortunate item that fell off a whimpering apple or a hapless helmet. You could trace their path across the rugged landscape like breadcrumbs. Only these breadcrumbs were heavily armored and had made quite an impression both on the soil and the pride of nearby villages. Let's take a moment and imagine what it must have felt like to be a soldier in the Byzantine Legion, stepping foot into a situation that instantly became a combination of stress and chaos. The reality of unruly would hug them like a long-lost friend they wished they'd never met. Falling into battle on a full stomach or splattering face first into a sand dune because I tripped. The choices are endless. As they trekked further, the complaints didn't just float in the air but were practically written in stone, figuratively speaking, of course, since they barely made it over an unremarkable incline, let alone carving epics. Did anyone remember the rations? I thought that's what the cart was for. As they looked at each other, wide-eyed with bewilderment, more sparks of absurdity were kindling within the ranks. They were armed, yes, but now, they were also armed with high hopes, low expectations, and an ever-increasing collection of bruises. Amidst all this nonsense, the Byzantine legions trudged on, through confusion and starvation, all the while complaining about their bad choices in helmets and the questionable spice choices in their rations. Who was crunched for time, and who was crunched by their own poor logistics planning. All and none of it, really. And, before you drift off into slumber, recall this little nugget. In a world of heavy armor and endless missteps, life was still marching on, albeit a little slower than it needed to be. And as the sun dips below the horizon, leaving these warriors contemplating the risks of poorly packaged snacks and the realities of rocky roads, just remember, sometimes conquering the world is really all about not stepping on your own feet while you do it. Asterisk asterisk. Chapter 10, Supply Lines and Sloppy Logistics asterisk asterisk. Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight, we'll dive deeper into logistics, yes, logistics. The kind that makes you wonder why you ever bothered with that IKEA furniture that practically required a PhD just to assemble. Imagine the early Islamic army's supply lines, slinking smoothly across the desert like an agile cat, while their competently wheeled rivals floundered about like a clumsy giraffe on roller skates. But first, let's set the scene. I invite you to dim the lights, perhaps put on a fan, and get cozy, because nothing says relaxation quite like contemplating the dusty strides of nomads from the 7th century. Now, close your eyes for a moment and picture this. You're an early Islamic soldier in the year 632 CE. You've just woken up on a fine morning where the sun is practically winking at you, and you think, what's for breakfast? Is it stale bread or jelly? Both sound equally underwhelming, right? And while we're at it, did anyone forget to pack the hummus? Beyond that, you must be pondering logistical wonders. How do I carry what I need without it weighing me down like my neighbor's drama? Congratulations! You've just joined an elite group of nomadic conquerors where packing light is the name of the game, and believe me, this crowd doesn't take its baggage lightly. Not that they take it at all, which is the point. So, let's talk about the sleek, lightweight supply lines of your early Muslim comrades. Imagine these soldiers, darting across the sand like camels high on caffeine, their packs thoughtfully rationed and streamlined. The sun shines brightly, and with every penetrating ray of sunlight, they feel more buoyant, their spirits soaring higher than the sand dunes they traverse. Now, cast your eyes across the battlefield to see their imperial rivals. Oh, dear readers, what a sight! If you peek closer, you may want to shield your precious retinas from the overwhelming presence of an overcomplicated baggage train. Picture massive carts, weighed down like your aunt's suitcase for a weekend getaway, but 5 times worse, each wheeled fortress creaking and squeaking, accompanied by a symphony of, is that wheel going to roll off? So, what's the deal with their cumbersome logistics? Well, besides sporting what must have been the ancient world's version of a clown car, these cumbersome carts held more items than a yard sale gone rogue. And trust me, Their supplies were about as easy to find as a $2 bill in a cash register. Each cart was a conundrum, a fortress weaving through the unfriendly landscape while juggling heavy armor, early snack packs, and weapons. This is with soldiers who weren't quite clear whether they were on a mission or just lost in a local game of medieval Pokemon. Gotta catch 'em all, definitely the baggage hits. And with all this pirouetting around the sands, the noise was positively deafening. Picture an orchestra of squeaks mixed with enthusiastic grunts. It's like watching a bouncy castle deflate while someone over-explains their workout routine. You could practically hear the inhabitants of the land sighing in disbelief, pondering why, oh why, these knights seemed to think a mobile armory was the way to gain favor with the gods. Spoiler, they were wrong. Ever thought about the challenges of having all that baggage? You ever struggle with oversized luggage in an airport, desperately tugging and yanking, groaning because your back is already telling you, no? Well, my imperial friends, they were practically carrying the weight of the entire kingdom on their backs. Picture a young soldier wrestling with all that gear, wishing they could just pop into the nearest coffee shop for a speedy caffeine hit instead of feeling like an overstuffed burrito. Meanwhile, the early Islamic army, they moved like gazelles. They were supposed to be lighter than your average diet, believing in the spiritual and physical benefits of keeping things manageable. Every step felt effortless, every bolt of cloth or pouch of nuts tightly secured and within reach, helping you feel spry enough to dodge whatever enemy, pesky wild boar, or wild-haired cousin was lurking nearby. But don't misjudge these early warriors. While their supply lines relied heavily on a few good camels, okay, maybe the odd donkey from time to time, the incredibly light structure allowed for quicker maneuvers. Their success was a mixed bag of cunning strategies, like playing a giant game of chess where the opponents only had rooks, but all your pieces were nimble knights, darting around and gifting smooth slayers of supply routes. Picture the leaders with a map, winking at their sergeants. Let's flit around the enemy's overinflated packs. You can practically hear the metal clanking from here. It was like watching a sitcom unfold where, no matter how absurd the tactical strategy was, the whole scene looked like it had popped out of a modern parody, the kind where absurdity is a badge of honor. As these two factions floundered like charmingly lost kittens, it became clear, simple rules of supply durability had barely left a mark. The light-footed nomads were gaining ground against the stubbornly bogged-down foes, all while recognizing that sometimes conquering the world is less about heavy artillery and more about not lugging around a cart of overwhelming absurdity. And as you inch closer to slumber, let the subtle murmurs of their journeys linger in your mind, reminding you that sometimes the key to lighting your way through chaos lies in embracing the elegance of simplicity, even if it means you'll forge ahead without that second pair of shoes. After all, heavy baggage does little for drawing connections or charming victories. Sleep well, dear travelers, and don't let the sound of cumbersome wheels haunt your dreams. Asterisk. Chapter 11. The Nomadic Archers and Their Arrow of Destiny. Asterisk. Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight, we'll traverse the sandy terrains of 7th century Arabia, a place where the sun shone hot enough to make frying eggs on a rock seem like a gourmet cooking technique. We're not just talking about any ordinary day here, oh no. We're talking archers, chiseled abs, and a smattering of nomadic horsemen who believed that conquering the world was just a fun hobby on the side, much like knitting or binge-watching reality TV. Before we get galloping, consider hitting that like button, unless you think this will turn your smartphone into a pumpkin. Don't forget to subscribe for more mildly interesting history, and feel free to toss a comment into the mix only if you're truly entertained, mind you. Now, let's dim those lights, crank up the fan to create gusts worthy of a desert wind, and get comfy. You might have to adjust your pillows, though they weren't quite designed by the ancient Egyptians, after all. So, ever wondered what it's like to be a horse archer galloping through the desert? Would you get carpal tunnel from drawing back those composite bows? Or is it more like using a really demanding catapult? How does one even keep their arrows organized amid dancing camels and well-laid plans gone awry? And how did your average nomadic warrior handle thirst? Were they chugging camel juice like it was a summer road trip? You can practically hear your mother-in-law nagging you about the importance of hydration, even in the 7th century. Congratulations! You've just woken up in 632 CE, complete with the finest desert views, a personalized horse, and the irresistible urge to impress everyone, especially that one archer who does backflips while shooting arrows. Talk about an embarrassing early morning. Let's set the scene. It's a brilliant morning, the kind where the sun is gloriously stretching its rays like a teenager on a Saturday morning, and the smell of dusty soil fills your nose. Your body feels alive, albeit a tad stiff. It may be all those luxurious hours spent sleeping on a bed of hay. Spoiler alert, it wasn't luxurious at all. As you take stock of your surroundings, you might notice other warriors preparing for the day. They're not just breakfast enthusiasts. These are finely tuned warriors, effortlessly riding horses as if they were born to do nothing else. Picture yourself perched on a robust steed, instead of thrashing about awkwardly, as you would on every roller coaster you've ridden. Your grip tightens around that composite bow. But typical of mornings, you unintentionally bend backward, reminiscent of your last gym attempt to touch your toes while breathing heavily. Let's just say, your bowstring doesn't hold the same aerodynamic grace as it would in its proper position. But wait, at the heart of this preparation is a battle plan that's less about conquer the known world and more about, let's throw our arrows at any rivals who look like they might have it coming. Honestly, very relatable when you think about avoiding that one neighbor during the annual BBQ. So now, let me paint you a picture of an early Islamic horse archer. It's like a scene straight out of an epic action movie, minus the CGI and awkward romantic subplots. As you gallop along the hot sands, the creaking of your saddle harmonizes with the rhythmic pounding of hooves, creating a soundscape less like a western and more like a bizarre equestrian symphony. Your beautifully crafted bow is drawn back, muscles taut and poised to release, not unlike your cousin who always shows up at family gatherings boasting about their physique. The moment culminates expertly as you release a flurry of arrows toward an unsuspecting enemy formation. They're standing there, all feeling rather cocky in their armor, perhaps shouting phrases like, "Let's show these nomads what we're made of." Little do they know, they're in the line of fire and about to be thoroughly unimpressed by your marksmanship. Asterisk thwack. Asterisk, one arrow zips through the air, killing the mood, just like Cousin Ted, who can't stop commenting on your life choices. And let's not forget your horse, your steadfast companion, galloping smoothly, expertly maneuvering around the battle lines. It almost feels like you two are dancing, fulfilling the weird role of a half-baked version of Dancing with the Stars. But in this case, the outcome has slightly more dire consequences than a spot on a reality show. Amid the chaos, the perfectly timed times thunks, times of arrows, embedding themselves in shields, sound eerily similar to the noise of overripe tomatoes slapping against a pavement, questionable decision-making, wrapped in loud consequences. But just when you think it's all about glory and victories, there's the peculiar dilemma. How on earth do you, an itinerant archer, resupply your arrows without turning into a crass, proverbial hoarder? Unlike today, where you can sprint to the store if you run out of hot wings during game night, there's no corner shop offering arrows alongside chips and guacamole. Nope, it's venture back into the desert for resourcing. Talk about commitment. As the dust settled and victories stacked up, it became clear, these nomadic warriors weren't just aiming for conquest. They simplified the art of logistics to an enviably bare minimum, achieving glory while keeping their baggage light. If only IKEA had figured out such efficient packing methods. So, allow the enchanting images of these horse archers to dance through your dreams tonight, reminding you that conquering your personal battles can indeed be a whimsical blend of skill, fun, and just the right amount of absurdity. Sleep well, dear traveler, and may you wake not just to the sound of gentle arrows flying overhead, but to the joyful quirkiness of history unfolding once more. Asterisk asterisk. Chapter 12. Knights and Mud. The heavy metal of the Byzantine battlefield asterisk asterisk. Hey guys. Welcome back. Tonight, we're plunging headfirst into the battlefield of 632 CE. A place so muddy you might think you stumbled into a pigsty masquerading as a military campaign. Picture hulking Byzantine cataphract knights, encased from head to toe in gleaming scale armor that looks more like a giant metal puzzle than anything else. Trust me, these guys weren't just a little overweight. They were practically the armored equivalent of trying to squeeze a hippo into a tutu. And all this while trying to navigate a battlefield that's as uneven as that last date you went on. Before we get stuck in the quagmire, consider hitting that like button, unless you think that would lead to a horde of angry exes camping outside your window. And do subscribe for more mildly interesting history, but only if you actually enjoy it. We promise not to summon the spirits of history to haunt you otherwise. Now, let's dim those lights, crank up your favorite fan, hopefully not too strong, Or your homework might just fly straight out the window and snuggle in. Imagine yourself breathing in the air of 7th century warfare, yes. It's paradoxically fragrant with sweat and burnt wool. As we plunge into this delightful mess, have you ever wondered how a knight managed to get stuck in mud after all those attempts to look intimidating? Or did they have a secret nightly dance they performed to avoid slips and slides? And really, how many times did an armored knight try to grab a snack, only to realize there's a valid reason armor didn't come with built-in snack holders? Congratulations! You've just woken up in 632 CE. The air is heavy with anticipation, and the distinct scent of damp earth, or maybe that's just your armor clanking as you try to rise. Let me paint the scene for you. It's early morning, and the ground squelches beneath your boots like a well-used sponge. In the distance, knights are preparing for battle, and while they look ready for a dramatic episode of Game of Thrones, there's one small issue. Every single one of those imposing warriors, clad in armor so shiny you could practically use it as a mirror, is deeply, hopelessly stuck in muck. Imagine them, struggling awkwardly like those cartoon characters trying to dance when they obviously have 2 left feet. You'd think that after all those battles, some armor etiquette would be established. Excuse me, Sir Gregory, could you please refrain from stepping into quicksand before an epic clash? But alas, chivalry isn't exactly about mud avoidance techniques. Now, the knights, bless their over-engineered outfits, feel the weight of history itself on their shoulders. Clad like a human tank, they muster the courage to stand tall, while the mud wraps around their feet as if trying to say, "Not today, Sir Nightmaker, today, you shall be one with the earth." And, let's be honest, after spending all that time perfecting their armor, you'd think someone would have invented a mud-resistant coating. At this point, it feels more like a fashion show gone terribly wrong. As the sun rises, the knights' frustrations begin to echo across the battlefield. Great. First, I tussled with a dragon last week, and today I'm stuck in the local marsh. Complaints of various volumes are heard from behind ornate helmets, mixed in with the sounds of metal scraping against metal, punctuated by a few shy whimpers from this poor nameless steed, tangled in the thick of it all. Picture it, an enormous, heavily armored knight waving his sword dramatically, oblivious to the fact that he's now merely playing a peculiar game of muffled hopscotch, all while trying to maintain a noble semblance. As luck would have it, they can't even muster the strength to pull themselves free. You could almost hear the armor creaking softly, as if begging for help from a friendly passerby. Now, this mud might cause you to question, how did these glamorous knights ever get anything done? Are they somehow more effective warriors when they're half falling over? Picture them trying to charge into battle, moving like a rare breed of cumbersome giraffe legs, flailing, ambition intact, but entirely futile in execution. Also, let's not forget their horses, poor creatures having to deal with their armored riders fully embracing the stuck theme. Ever tried directing a horse while encased in a coat of armor? It's like trying to steer a runaway shopping cart. Your sense of stability is non-existent, and nothing quite feels more questionable than your life choices at that moment. And so, in this muddy debacle, it becomes clear. Life is all about navigation. Those who excelled in complex battle plans were merely practicing for future dates or casual strolls around the park, complete with grass stains and maybe a tumble into a slight water hazard. As the sun sets and the nights remain entangled, they've unwittingly created a bizarre but strangely beautiful sight. A battlefield echoing stories of glory, dampened by the gentle hum of armor clanking and squelching mud. Because ultimately, warriors in the past might have been strong, but the field of mud? It's stronger still, holding onto them like an overzealous life coach intent on teaching them a lesson in humility. So, dear dreamer, as you snuggle into your warm blankets tonight, let the vision of muddy nights dance through your thoughts. Perhaps life is less about mastery, and more about learning to embrace those sticky moments, whether they're on a battlefield or an everyday scenario. Sleep well, and may unsolicited mud challenges follow you into tomorrow's adventures, just not literally. Asterisk asterisk. Chapter 13. The Agile Nomad. Scimitars and Strategies. Under the Sun asterisk asterisk. Hey guys. Welcome back to Mildly Interesting History, where tonight's topic is spicier than a failed curry night. The wild and somewhat ridiculous adventures of the sun-drenched warriors of the Rashidun Caliphate. Yes, we're talking about those swashbuckling nomads of 632 CE who could probably make a tent anywhere, maybe even your backyard if you're not careful. But before we dive into the thrilling world of overly confident warriors clad in leather and chainmail, could you do us a favor? Hit that like button as if you're trying to launch a mini catapult, and subscribe if you want more history that's about as interesting as finding out your favorite pizza joint offers gluten-free. Only follow us if you genuinely enjoy the whimsical journey in the legendary words of those nomads. If it's not fun, then what's the purpose? Now, let's dim those lights, put on a gentle fan not too strong, or you might accidentally recreate a windstorm in your living room, and settle in. Imagine breathing in the invigorating air of 7th century desert warfare, yes. The unmistakable aromas of sweat, sand, and the surprisingly floral scent of camels. Camels, in fact, would have made excellent allies, assuming they could handle each warrior's impeccable sense of style and questionable personal hygiene. So let me ask you this. Ever found yourself running late for an important appointment, only to face an epic wardrobe malfunction? What if your pants decided to become a medieval version of quicksand, as you're thrust into battle? Or how about trying to juggle a scimitar, while figuring out how to tie your sandals properly? And of course, have you ever attempted to look fierce while also desperately trying to pull together a makeshift lunch from last week's your leftovers? Ah, the art of multitasking historically and Hendejogen style. Congratulations, you've just woken up in 632 CE, amid the rugged deserts of the Arabian Peninsula, where nomadic lifestyles crush the boring mundanities of urban living. The heat wraps around you like an overenthusiastic burrito, and the ground beneath your feet feels as reliable as your Wi-Fi connection during a family movie night. In short, your morning is simply a balmy stroll through a scenic nightmare, complete with commandeered camels and rusty scimitars. Now let's talk about your attire, lightweight, leather and chainmail, thanks to the strategic fashion sense of your local tailor. The sun kisses your glistening skin, or perhaps that's just a layer of sweat accumulating like a desperate salsa dancer mid-party. It's undeniably functional gear, emphasizing agility and speed perfect for dodging pesky arrows or perhaps uninvited relatives at Thanksgiving. And let's not forget the curved scimitar at your side, ready to slice through a hot day's frustration or maybe just a particularly stubborn loaf of bread. Yes, it's a beautiful weapon, but ever tried wielding it while battling prickly sandals? One misstep and congratulations, you've transformed into a living episode of Nailed It, historically clumsy edition. As you stride through the wilderness, the other warriors eye you with a mix of curiosity and perhaps a tinge of envy, or maybe it's admiration for your precise ability to balance practical combat readiness, and an enthusiastic wave to a passing caravan of bewildered traders. Is that a battle cry or an invitation for snacks? They might wonder as you approach, flashing what you hope is an intimidating grin. Now, the bustling camp around you is alive with the sounds of sizzling food and mildly chaotic conversations. Nomadic life has its ups and downs, much like your expectations on a Monday morning coffee run. When attempting to mount a trusty steed, moments of grace are rare. More commonly, it looks like an overzealous rendition of a llama trying to hula hoop, while your fellow warriors demonstrate their expertise in holding milk and honey like medieval multitaskers. You're left wondering how much is too much before breakfast competes with your battle agenda. What's quicker, defeating my enemies or finding a jar of jam? Meanwhile, the clattering of metal and the scraping of leather create a soundtrack worthy of any modern action film or a not-so-modern infomercial for medieval warriors. The workout. Struggling with poise? Try dancing with scimitars for a refreshing new take on fitness, but beware of unexpected nicknames. And just like that, the sun beats down, fueling both your ambition and discomfort in equal measure. Perhaps it's time to find a shady tree, or casually negotiate with a passing merchant about ice-cold beverages. Just imagine the expressions. As the day stretches on like a cat in the sunshine, you catch snippets of camaraderie and mischief bouncing through the air. Warriors exchange battle stories that morph faster than a game of telephone on Red Bull at brunch. I swear I took down 3 full armies single-handedly just yesterday. Oh, really? Is that before or after your horse had a personality crisis and decided it's a ballerina? Ah, dear dreamer, such is life among the Rashidun Caliphate, a tapestry woven with the threads of strategy, humor, and a light touch of absurdity. And as the sun begins to set, casting a slightly golden glow over the land, it's a not-so-subtle reminder that even in the most unpredictable of historical adventures, laughter remains the universal glue. Perhaps that's what truly connected these brave nomads to the world around them. So snuggle up tonight, and may you drift into restorative slumber, where your dreams are punctuated by only the most endearing of warrior antics, remembering the lessons of agile nomads navigating life, one baffling story at a time. Chapter 14, United in Scimitars and Prayer Hey guys. Welcome back to Mildly Interesting History, the place where you dive headfirst into the quirky, tangled web of human experience, even if it's as sticky as last week's honey. Tonight, we're about to embark on a journey more riveting than watching your favorite sitcom reruns for the 100th time. The rather astonishing and mildly hilarious exploits of an early Muslim army in the Rashidun Caliphate. Yes, these stitched-together nomads, who somehow managed to sip tea on camels while simultaneously grappling with world domination, are our stars tonight. But first, if you could do us a tiny, almost inconsequential favor, give that like button a little tap. Think of it as tossing a coin into the wishing well of internet fame, except wishes may or may not come true. And please subscribe if you enjoy this whimsical journey. We promise not to trap you in a historical genre you didn't sign up for unless you want to be trapped. In which case, welcome aboard. Now, dim those lights like it's a dramatic scene in a movie, and cast that fan on low enough that it feels like a mild summer breeze, not a hurricane attempting to lift you away to Oz. Get comfortable, as we set the stage for our tale. Imagine this. You've just woken up in the year 632 CE, and your first order of business is, where's the coffee? Or how about a quick snack, before potentially engaging in a life or death battle? Perhaps you ponder, if they serve breakfast before the morning prayers, or if that family of livestock nearby has been munching on your lunch. Congratulations. You find yourself in the eastern desert, surrounded by a fiercely disciplined army preparing not just for a battle but also for an intense spiritual experience. But have you ever thought about what goes on in the minds of these early Muslim warriors right before they charge into battle? Do they worry about the fit of their chainmail? Are they silently praying for a miracle to avoid the humiliation of tripping over their sandals while shouting battle cries? Or maybe they just hope the guy next to them remembered to put on deodorant. Boy, does it get hot under those turbans. As you take in the scene, you see rows of soldiers kneeling in solemn prayer, united in faith and purpose, looking like an alternative yoga class that accidentally wandered onto a battlefield. They're holding their heads high and whispering their hopes, drawing strength from the community spirit surrounding them, almost like a massive group text. Hey team, let's huddle for strength and crush our enemies. Please RSVP, if you plan to show up. These warriors embody resilience. Picture it. The sun, lazily draping itself across the desert like an unwelcome fuzzy blanket, while the air fills with a collective hum of determination. The scent of sand and sweat wafts around as the army kneels together, their faith acting like a unified energy source they can all tap into. It's like an ancient pep rally, only with fewer pom-poms and a lot more scimitars. That's right, my folks, because under this powerful moment of camaraderie is the not-so-subtle knowledge that soon you'll be fighting for survival. Now, can you imagine how quickly those really profound thoughts shift? One moment you're praying for peace, the next, you're wondering if you should have packed an extra pair of socks, or maybe a small snack, figs and pomegranates. Anyone? Let's talk about the sound. It's a blend of whispers swirling through the desert air, mingling with the occasional sound of a jerky camel in distress. Picture it, a majestic army, poised for battle, suddenly interrupted by a creature out of sorts. Excuse me, dear General, but your trusty steed seems to be rehearsing for a role as an opera singer. Yes, the life of a warrior isn't without its distractions. And then there's the joyful realization that these soldiers are as human as you and I. They might be preparing to conquer empires, but they surely worry about mundane issues too. Like, do I pray towards Mecca or the olive tree that's still around after last week's battle? Or, is it me? Or is my chainmail starting to chafe? Those little niggling thoughts sneak in. Like realizing you're going to a battle and remembering your mom told you not to leave the house without clean underwear. Talk about pressure. As they kneel, you can't help but wonder, is there a strong marketing team behind this lovely ensemble of heroic prayer? Battle and prayer, the original collaborative experience. Their garments are a riot of rich colors and surprising texture. Think a World Cup jersey meets desert glam. Now, let's get back to the prayer itself. Picture it. Healing words echo through the valley, the warriors united. Their mantra is akin to a motivational playlist. Survival of the fittest, they chant. Victory is near. Might I suggest a catchy air guitar riff as the anthem of this remarkable moment? It's history smashing against the backdrop of absurdity, and the perfect setting for what's to come. As the final moments of prayer converge, watch closely. The anticipation is thicker than the cloud of dust kicked up by the stampede of camels and eager soldiers alike. One might even hear a collective whisper of, "Let's do this." Or was that the hum of a distant horn? So there you sit, witnessing the army poised for action, bound together by something far greater than just a mere battle strategy, their brotherhood, bravery, and, of course, perhaps a shared sense of humor that could one day morph into delightful tales for generations to come. As they rise, ready to conquer kingdoms, or at least complete the local grocery run, the sun dips low in the sky, casting a golden hue over them, illuminating their fierce spirit. Dear dreamer, such is life among the Rashidun warriors, a mix of faith, camaraderie, and just a dash of inexplicable absurdity. So sink into your pillows tonight, and let these legendary antics swirl around your dreams, where prayers blend with giggles and camels share secret plots blending absurdity with history, one sleep at a time. Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 15. A hero's rest on the battlefield, asterisk, asterisk. As the sun rises over the desolate battlefield of 632 CE, it casts a golden hue that softens the unforgiving strife of the day before. It's almost comical, really, the way light can make chaos look picturesque. You find yourself here, surrounded by the rustling remnants of life, the echoes of battle melding softly with the chirping of morning birds, which seem entirely unfazed while you're contemplating how a handful of nomads became known as the mighty warriors of the Rashidun Caliphate. And there, lying serenely amidst the sand and sorrow, is a fallen warrior, wrapped in a moment of peaceful acceptance that makes you wonder, was he really ready for the afterlife, or did he just think he was on a really bad camping trip? Perhaps he'd been daydreaming about a warm hearth and a nice cup of mint tea when he suddenly found himself face to face with fate. Or, more importantly, did he pack his favorite blanket for the great tea beyond? Let's talk about the warrior's face, a canvas of tranquility, unexpectedly mounted on the chaos of war. The morning sun glistens atop his features, making him look as if he's just had the best beauty nap known to humankind. Ever wondered if he smiled in his sleep, blissfully unaware of the swords flying around him? Life is but a dream, he surely must have thought before taking that long, eternal nap. Around him, the battlefield is an earthy patchwork of regret and glory. The rich smell of sun-warmed sand intermingles with the faint metallic tang of blood left over from yesterday's skirmish, a fragrance that doesn't quite make it into any modern air freshener. Commercial, let's be honest. Yet, through it all, the warrior's acceptance is palpable. In this moment, he symbolizes not just the heroics of war, but also the remarkable absurdity of a world where one can simultaneously be a conqueror and a bagel enthusiast before breakfast. As you step closer, a gentle breeze brushes against the sun-warmed skin of your face, tickling you awake to the reality of the sad, epic narrative. Here lies a man whose dreams of an infinite supply of fresh pomegranates were abruptly cut short. What was his last thought? I hope this isn't like the time I signed up for a group hug and ended up face first in the mud. But here's the twist. Our fallen hero, like many others around him, might have believed, even in his final moments, that he was choosing martyrdom on this desolate field. It's the quintessential dilemma of our conquerors. You march forward, adorned in spiffy battle gear, as outdated as it may seem, and hold your breath, hoping the universe grants you a shiny new afterlife in reward. But wait. Did anyone remind you to pack an extra pair of socks and maybe some snacks for the journey? Because those fig bars might come in handy when you're pondering your fate at a celestial snack table. The air is thick with stories yet to be told. Every grain of sand buried in a pocket of history belongs to a tale of bravery, embarrassment, or sheer desperation. You can almost hear the warrior's internal monologue. Was I really courageous, or did I simply forget to read the fine print before signing up for drama? As morning light dances, you visualize how folklore could evolve here. Perhaps centuries later, children will gather around campfires, eager to hear about the bravest warrior whose ultimate battle cry turned into a rather comical misunderstanding, involving a donkey and miscalculated battle strategy. Because let's face it, do you think the family of the fallen warrior would want anyone to remember him as just another hero, when he could forever live on as the one who forgot the grapes? The irony is that while his fellow soldiers ride into the sunset, waving their scimitars and clutching their teacups, there's our hero lying quietly, probably wishing someone would get his morning coffee order sorted out. You might wonder if he wished for some kind of acknowledgement for not just hitting the battlefield but for, well, being relatable. I'm not just a martyr, he'd probably say if he had the chance. I'm a guy who forgot to ask for the Wi-Fi password before charging into war. Our fallen warrior holds onto a lesson so profound, it borders on absurdity. In battle, as in life, it pays to be strategic, not just in planning your conquests, but also in understanding the value of a good snack, and always being ready to laugh, even as light fades from view. So as you gently drift into the dreamier realms tonight, let the comforting vision of our warrior guide your thoughts. Picture him, carefree in that ethereal realm, perhaps raising a mug of favorite herbal tea while chuckling over ludicrous heroic tales he reminded his friends of, someone easing his soul with a soft, eternal embrace. Rest your head gently tonight, dear dreamer. The world has its absurdities, and you've been granted a front row seat to the magnificent chaos of history, where even in epic tragedy, a giggle can always find its way through. Sweet dreams await, and with them, all the unconquered yesterdays of humanity just waiting for you to explore. Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 16. The conquests come with a side of confusion. Asterisk, asterisk. 632 CE. What a time to be alive. You've just landed smack dab in the middle of a whirlwind of sword-waving and ideology, and let's not kid ourselves. It's about as organized as a herd of cats on a roller coaster. On one side, you can almost hear the clanking of Byzantine armor as they engage in a power struggle, and on the other, a zealous Muslim warrior stands tall, brandishing a banner that looks simpler than a post-it note reminder, but is probably packing more meaning than your last family reunion. Just take a moment to imagine this. You've got a Byzantine soldier, quaking in his heavily embroidered boots, who might have dropped his shield with all the grace of a toddler letting go of their first ice cream cone. You can almost see him looking around, hoping the nearby shrub will sprout legs and rescue him from the incoming storm of fervent faith and fearlessness. Perhaps he thinks, if only I'd stayed home to practice my knitting instead of joining this whole combat mess. And then, across the field, there's that one Muslim warrior, eyes ablaze, as he raises his banner high. It's just a lovely green cloth. But to him, it's the ultimate symbol of unity and purpose. Ever tried motivating a disheartened group with a bright green napkin? Spoiler alert, it usually doesn't work. But here's a guy who somehow commands respect with what appears to be the world's simplest flag. Hey everyone, I'm here to unite you. Just look at my, towel. Let's set the stage a little more clearly. Picture the sun blazing down, making the whole atmosphere more intense than a reality show reunion special. In one corner, Byzantine soldiers are clad in shiny armor that practically screams, "Look at me," while simultaneously shouting, "I am very expensive." They carry ornate shields that might as well have come with a designer label attached. But alas, more often than not, they're also questioning their life choices mid-battle. Why did I think I could impress my mom by joining the army? Where's that fancy salon when you need a good hairstyling to go with this armor? You can sense them questioning if this is truly worth the dry cleaning bill, or if they wouldn't be better off running a charming little tea shop instead, serving scones and conspiracy theories. Meanwhile, the Muslim warriors, fresh-faced under their banners, look just as fierce as a 5-year-old ready to defend their cookie stash. With less metal plating and more fabric, they look like a mobile flash mob of righteous confidence. The simplicity in their garb seems to echo a philosophy. Why complicate things when we can unite and fight while looking fabulous? If only they knew about the advertising potential of their ensemble. Join us for a cause, a cup of tea is included for brave souls. And in between this theatrical clash, what do you think the average citizen thought? Well, crikey, my roof still leaks, our crops are in total disarray, and now these two groups of warriors are about to dramatically alter our breakfast options. Will they at least consider toast as an acceptable option in their fine battle? There's nothing like a good battle accompanied by a comforting slice of toast loss. The noise of clashing swords, sheer determination, and the occasional sound of someone's lunch going astray fills the air. And just like that, the usually mundane life of raising goats and trading dates spins into a chaotic symphony. Suddenly, everyone's rushing to determine which side they should support, not purely for ideology but for the simple fact that maybe, just maybe, supporting the group with better snacks could tip the scales. Good luck deciding between the troop promising figs and the ones offering olives. Imagine waking up in a busy market after this whole ordeal. with peasants serving unwanted opinions about whichever side. 1. Oh, you should have seen that Byzantine guy, sword in one hand, waving his shield like a lost tourist. While another might chime in, the Muslim banner, pure poetry, my friend. I thought I could smell baked bread earlier in the air, but that was just the aroma of conquering spirit. In the end, this wasn't just about geography or empire. It was about absurdities, sensibilities rendered meaningless in the face of battle, and humanity's proclivity for eating snacks in chaotic times. You, too, can find the hilarity in it all. Admirably conquering your pet cat's refusal to move off your lap calls for commemorative cookies too, doesn't it? So, as the sun begins to set on our battlefield of clashing cultures, just imagine our Byzantine soldier, albeit a little less courageous now. He could sit down with his companions, unable to stop binging on what went wrong, while our Muslim warriors get cozy under the stars planning their next victory party. 1. Things for sure. They were a wild bunch, chaotic yet committed, and just downright entertaining. Take a breath, find your rhythm once more, and let the whims of history guide your sleepy thoughts into a symphony of past absurdities, where even in battle, snacks were arguably the true victors. Rest easy, brave dreamer. The world of history awaits you, full of delightful nonsense. Chapter 17. Gold, greed, and the gathering of highly unmotivated mercenaries. Hey guys, welcome back to our cozy corner of mildly interesting history. Tonight, we dive into a scene so dimly lit, it makes the back of your refrigerator look like a sunbath. Picture this, it's 632 CE, and the Rashidun Caliphate is growing like a pizza dough left in a warm corner. But not all is well in this bubbling cauldron of expansion. With a mix of intrigue and absurdity, we arrive at a secret gathering, more clandestine than your Uncle Larry sneaking in frosting from the pantry at midnight. Our protagonist? A Byzantine general who looks like he left the house dressed for a fancy dinner, but instead found himself in an awkward networking event with the world's least enthusiastic mercenaries. You'll want to settle in as we explore what it's like to convince a bunch of not-so-passionate swords for hire to join the fray. So, let's imagine you are the Byzantine general, standing in an airless room that has all the charm of a damp basement. The mercenaries surrounding you look like they just stepped off a silent film set. Emotional range? 0. Motivation? Less than your last gym workout. They're a delightful mix of grim faces of various shapes, sizes, and existential crises. You stroll in, jingling your gold coins like a timid Santa on a budget, waving your hand like an excited magician pulling off the worst magic trick ever. Ladies and gents, how about a little adventure? You say, with all the flair of a used car salesman. The mercenaries glance at each other, their facial expressions stuck in a permanent state of meh. They don't look at all impressed, more like a bunch of cats that have just been told they need to take a bath. Take a moment to breathe it in. The musty scent of sweat mingling with the slight rancid odor of leather armor. It's a chaotic symphony of reluctant sighs and the occasional rustle of greasy hair. These mercenaries are the kind of people who would rather binge on stale bread than risk their lives for lofty ideals or shiny banners. And yet, here you are trying to woo them with, well, gold. Nothing says please fight for me like a handful of currency. Why should we care about your shiny ideas, General? One grumpy-looking fellow chimed in with the enthusiasm of a slug. I mean, I just filed my taxes, and now you want me to join a fight? Where's the sense in that? The others nod, clearly weighing whether to risk their lives, or simply go back to daydreaming about the sweet embrace of a freshly baked loaf of bread. Now, let's set the scene a bit further. Can you hear it? The soft clink of coins, reminiscent of casino slots in desperate need of a win, almost drowns out the murmurs of doubt that cloud the air. You stand there, fervently explaining how this is not just fighting, it's about making history. Making history. The mercenaries roll their eyes as if you just asked them to explain the plot of a forgettable romantic comedy. You shake your fist, channeling every ounce of charisma you can muster. Think about the glory, the honor. Meanwhile, one mercenary is contemplating the real heroism involved in making a perfect cup of tea. Tea is both comforting and requires no risk whatsoever. Meanwhile, two other mercenaries are trying to figure out if they left the oven on back home. It's clear. Motivating this troop of nonchalant warriors is akin to trying to awaken a hibernating bear with a great sense of exterior decor. You think you're appealing to their greed, patriotism, or perhaps even some vague sense of humor. But really, it's like waving a carrot in front of a goat that struck a peace treaty with its own laziness. Spoiler, it won't budge. One of the mercenaries, surprisingly, exclaims, "Gold. How about a pastry instead?" Laughter erupts in the group, and you realize that for these earthbound enthusiasts, snacks may be the ultimate motivator. So why not sketch a deal? Join me, and I shall provide you with food better than what your mother used to make. Now you've got their attention, sweet pastries speak louder than promises of war glory. As the conversation unfolds, the mercenaries increasingly resemble skeptical couch potatoes rather than fearless warriors. They discuss their weekend plans. So, wait, if I take this gig, will I still have time for my day-long reality TV marathon? They ponder over what heroic acts will earn them more likes on social media. Too bad, no one is recording this meeting, huh? And so, with a sprinkle of gold, a dash of pastries, and just a hint of negotiation, you draw them back into the world of conquest. But deep down, you just know they'll probably be charting a course toward the nearest tavern after the first battle. After all, what good is glory if there's no fine ale and catchy tavern song to celebrate afterwards? As you finish making your rather unorthodox pitch, you realize that this entire scene is so awash in humanity's quirks that even if you fail to earn their loyalty, you'll have a comical story to share over a drink. Because what is history, really, other than a series of sideshows that lead to great public embarrassment and the occasional unexpected pastry? So there you are, in this shadowy gathering, striving to wrap mingled fate with a touch of humor, while dodging the reality of mercenary enthusiasm and an emotional commitment that's about as low as the bar for early morning talk shows. Just remember, dear dreamer, when history is on the line, and mercenaries look like they'd rather play hopscotch than battle, all you can do is breathe in, chuckle softly, and figure out how to sweeten the pot, preferably with dessert. Rest easy, and allow these historical absurdities to cradle you into sleep, where dreams blur with laughter and reality twists into gleeful nonsense that even the most reluctant mercenary would approve of. Asterisk asterisk, Chapter 18, The Great Squeeze, Uniting Rivals, Under a Flag, asterisk asterisk. Hey guys, welcome back to this cozy corner of mildly interesting history. Tonight, we embark on an adventure so grand it makes the idea of assembling IKEA furniture look like a fun afternoon with friends. Picture this. It's 632 CE, where power struggles are playing out with the intensity of a relationship argument over whose turn it is to choose the next Netflix series. This is a time when diverse Arab tribal chiefs, who previously regarded each other like rival ice cream vendors at a state fair, suddenly find themselves shaking hands under a single green and black banner, all while likely wondering who forgot the snacks. Before we dive deeper, let's take a moment to reflect. Have you ever tried to unite your family for a holiday gathering, only to realize that your Aunt Mildred's sourdough bread recipe may cause nuclear fallout? Or how about trying to calm those two friends who always seem to find themselves in a civil war over the last slice of pizza? Spoiler alert. Family reunions and pizza slices are often more contentious than historical alliances. Now, imagine this entire scenario magnified 100-fold. Tribal chiefs representing communities with histories longer than your attention span on a Tuesday afternoon, suddenly declaring that they're best buds now. But like every good story, it's not that simple. Picture these leaders, their dignity stewing like an old soup on a back burner, contemplating how the unlikeliest of friendships might hold the key to not just survival, but dominance. Congratulations, dreamer. You've just woken up in 632 CE. And trust me, you're no longer in the comfortable bubble of your couch. You're surrounded by men in flowing robes and extravagantly styled beards that surely took longer to groom than a cat stuck in a rainstorm. You hear a low murmur of chatter, punctuated by nervous laughter, mostly because no one's quite sure how they all got here, or why they should trust one another as they eye the nearest sword enthusiast. Let's talk about the air for a moment. It's thick and dusty, mingling with the faint smell of grilled meat that somehow always manages to find its way into these meetings. That's right, if you're expecting a Michelin star banquet, you're about to be disappointed. It's more like a chaotic barbecue where everyone is secretly plotting how they can steal each other's lamb skewers while holding formal discussions. You see, these tribal chiefs were rivals only yesterday. This vibrant patchwork of personalities, from the overly dramatic to the utterly serious, is a bit like a group of kindergarteners on a safer day out, except the stakes are higher, and the only snacks involved are perhaps some bread and a bit of goat cheese. The urgency is palpable as word spreads about their newfound alliance. Imagine a scene where every chief kicks up a cloud of dust that rivals a sandstorm after all. Nothing says, "Let's get together," quite like a whole lot of dust and a vague threat of bloodshed. But mostly the dust. With each stamp of a sandal, the murmurs grow louder, swirling around the gathering like enthusiastic street performers trying out their latest act. And here's where the absurdity kicks in. Each chief is desperately trying to negotiate the terms of their friendship, each with their own unique flavor of grandstanding. "I propose a grand feast," one shouts, while another interrupts mid-sentence, insisting that they have to establish food rights first. Yes, when it comes to food, nothing divides faster than a plate of flatbreads. You can almost hear the internal monologue. Asterisk. Who will bring the olive oil dip? It can make or break this whole arrangement. Asterisk. Now let's pause for a moment. Doesn't this sound familiar? Ever tried to organize your friends for a weekend getaway? You know the drill. One wants to go hiking. Another insists on finding the best local coffee shop, while someone else maps out a possible route that conveniently passes around every single gelato joint in town. When all you wanted was a cozy escape, suddenly it feels like you've stumbled into an episode of Survivor, the group project edition. As the chiefs group together, a sense of hilarity looms over the assembly. They begin to agree not just on how to fight, but on how to share what might be the worst inside joke in desert history. "We'll have a common banner," one declares, while thinking about how to better decorate the living room with this new emblem, likely doing more for their ego than their actual military strategy. But underneath the light-hearted banter is an unflinching truth. This merge of tribes is politically genius. They each begin to realize that in combining their forces, they're not just stacking swords in one place. They're fiddling with something heavier, their legacies. If they could pull this off, they would dominate the region. And there's nothing quite as compelling as the idea of being the collective cool kids on the block. Yet, as their laughter echoes off the walls, you can't help but think of the conversations occurring in the sidelines. The older chiefs whispering like covert squirrels, pondering the likelihood of actually keeping this alliance through the upcoming social events. "But can we trust them?" You hear one mumble. "What if the last guy who shook my hand ended up swiping my extra slice of baklava?" In the grand tapestry of history, those shaking hands under the banner knew their true challenge was in navigating the turbulent waters of newfound union, where friendship was as fragile as the latest fashion in tunics, and rivalries wouldn't sit down quietly without resting for the last word, much like a group chat full of opinions but no resolute choices. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows over negotiations, consider this. History often reflects the absurdity of human nature. Sometimes, it's not about ideological supremacy but about how well you can negotiate shared snacks, awkward handshakes, and, of course, the promise of safety in numbers. And as you drift off, remember, perhaps the greatest lesson in history is that sometimes, the most unexpected alliances, no matter how ludicrous, can shape the very world you stand upon, even if the drama unfolds like a reality show with a surprise twist. Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 19. The Court of Frayed Robes and Tattered Dreams. Asterisk, asterisk. As you take a deep breath, a wave of opulence descends upon you, almost as comforting as that last slice of Sunday cake you tried and failed to sneak away with. Welcome to the Sasanian court, circa 632 CE, where the nobles are so richly robed that even a peacock would feel insecure about its own feathers. You're surrounded by an extravagant miniature world, but let's not get carried away with dreams of grandeur. This is a realm more comical than regal, one where plotting involves far more drama than an over-the-top soap opera. Let's pause for a moment and imagine the wood-scented air thick with the perfume of confidence, or should we say, overconfidence. It's like stepping into the living room of someone who's convinced themselves that 27 houseplants will transform them into a green-thumbed deity. You're nestled amidst noble men, each more elaborately dressed than the next, whispering secrets so scandalous that they would make even a reality TV producer raise an eyebrow. These aren't just any nobles. Think of them as the original cool kids in history. Except here, the stakes are less about popularity contests, and more about who totally, just insulted someone else's goat. Now, picture the scene. It's as if you'd walked into a high-stakes knitting circle, except instead of yarn, you've got grand ambitions sizzling like sausages on a hot barbecue grill. Each noble, in splendid attire that matches their exaggerated sense of importance, is plotting against the others, fueled by jealousy and dreams of dynastic glory. Who needs sitcoms when you can bear witness to guys in ridiculous hats bickering over who gets to sit in the best spot during a feast? Spoiler, sitting anywhere near the spiced lamb is the only real position of power here. And what's with all that decor? It's not just decorative but rather a veritable gladiatorial arena for tension and ego. Silks billow like they're in a constant state of dramatic storytelling, while intricate wall murals practically shout, "Look at me, I'm fabulous." Meanwhile, beneath that decadence is a whisper of decay, lurking like an unexpected guest at your dinner party who just won't take a hint and go home. The grandeur of the court is crumbling, much like the ambitions of nobles who are realizing they've painted themselves into a luxurious corner. As laughter bubbles and echoes, you notice one noble gesturing animatedly, his fingers dancing in the air like an over-caffeinated conductor. No, I say we reinstate the festival of excessive drinking, he suggests, clearly thinking that turning into a human piñata at large-scale bashes is the key to winning popularity, because what could possibly go wrong here? This court, dear friend, is not just feasting, it's a veritable cornucopia of bad ideas. It's like a modern-day office potluck, but with slightly less enthusiasm for mediocre casseroles. Imagine the chaotic conversations that swirl about, each noble trying to convince the others that their idea will not only elevate their status, but improve their buffet options. They shout about creating grand alliances, as if friendships could be crafted over spiced rice and roasted lamb, like it's a Pinterest board come to life. And in case you were under the impression that alliances come easy, allow me to burst that bubble. The noblemen here function like a pack of entitled cats, furiously eyeing each other while figuring out who gets to eat first. What if the last alliance ended up with a particularly aggressive selection of names on their enemies' list? It's enough to make anyone's head spin, like watching a reality show marathon, where every new twist feels like an impending disaster. As you lounge amid their splendor, you can almost hear the collective nervousness humming in the air. Each noble is keenly aware that their opulence is gilded with a light coating of dread. It's a delicate dance of betrayal, like attempting to play Twister after one too many flagons of mead. One wrong move, and they may find themselves on the far end of a power play, feeling as trapped as a mouse at the mercy of a cat with an artistic flair for theatrics. Feasts here are massive but riddled with awkward tension. Imagine a long table heavily laden with food, every dish representing a rival family's plot to one-up another. You've got roasted meats glistening in the candlelight, an entirely disdainful scene punctuated only by the sound of good intentions being dashed against the rocks of ego and ambition. "Oh, you brought the goat, how quaint," one noble may smirk to another, as if discussing the latest in unfortunate neckties. But perhaps the most entertaining part of the Sasanian court is not merely the food, glitzy decor, or the conflicts brewing beneath silk garments. It's how administering absurdly elaborate ceremonies has become a life skill unto itself. You watch as the nobles exchange finely crafted insults wrapped in poetic flattery, a sort of verbal fencing done with the finesse of a cat batting around a ball of yarn. Your tunic is as bold as your neglect of personal hygiene. Becomes a compliment in the right circles, as the nobles laugh, each secretly hoping they'll get the last guffaw. And as the night wears on, the babble becomes a surreal soundtrack of dreams, ambitions, jealousies, and the faint clinks of elegant goblets. Here you find a microcosm of human nature, encapsulated beneath a veneer of dazzling opulence. Power is fleeting, friendships are fragile, and in the end, the best laid plans amount to little more than a funny story at the next gathering, complete with a punchline about an ill-fated alliance and the goat that started it all. As you begin to drift towards sleep, the absurdity of it all is a gentle reminder that sometimes the grandest empires wobble on the foundation of laughable misadventures. Welcome to the Sasanian court, where history meets hilarity, and everyone at the table secretly hopes they don't end up as the backdrop for the next great epic of betrayal. Asterisk. Chapter 20. The Chains of Faith and Folly, ****. Now that you find yourself cozily nestled in the intriguing chaos of the Sasanian court, let's pivot, shall we? Let's talk about chains. No, not the kind that keep your neighbor's rogue peacock from terrorizing your garden, but rather those heavy, symbolic ones that bind faith and culture, like two overly affectionate relatives that just can't let go at family reunions. Imagine it's 632 CE. A time when history feels as fluid as a jiggly dessert, and two empires are about to find out that keeping things harmonious is harder than balancing a flaming sword on your nose. We're standing at the crossroad between the Byzantine Empire and the Sasanian Empire, a place where religious belief and ethnic pride clashed more stubbornly than a couple of rival street magicians determined to prove their tricks were better. Picture a stage where the performers have all tried to one-up each other with more and more outrageous acts until they've bound themselves in chains of misunderstanding. Gentle, docile chains, if you will, wrapped around the cross of Christ and a flaming Zoroastrian altar, creating a symbolic sign that says, "Welcome to the early Islamic period, where we take our spiritual confusion seriously." The sheer ridiculousness of it all could make the gods of irony giggle, as the clash of ideologies made everyone feel more tangled than a cat in a ball of yarn. Close your eyes for a moment, you can almost smell the incense wafting around as if the gods themselves were attempting to hide the scent of tumultuous anxiety blending with desperation. The Byzantine Christians and Sasanian Zoroastrians wield their beliefs like oversized lightsabers, clashing in a heated battle, only to realize they are both just as confused by each other's practices as they are baffled by roller skates. Honestly, if you took a Zoroastrian to a Byzantine mass, you might as well have handed them a 500-piece puzzle, missing half its pieces. Can you imagine sitting down for a meal with these folks? The main course is often a delightful stew of betrayal, seasoned with the spice of paranoid fears that your neighbor may be plotting against you, possibly over whose sacrifices to the gods are deemed more impressive. "I brought a goat to the fire altar," exclaims a proud Zoroastrian, only to be met with a haughty reply from a Byzantine. "Oh, fabulous. But I must say, our bread and wine make for a more sophisticated offering." This is all while you take a bite of your bread and wish someone would offer you a good book instead. And let's not forget the dramatic societal implications. Religious tensions were like a poorly executed marriage proposal, awkward, perhaps fatal, and rife with misunderstandings. The political landscape shifted more quickly than a toddler's attention span at a buffet. Not only did both sides grapple with differing worldviews, but they also had the delightful task of figuring out how to rally support without stepping on the collective toes of their neighbors. It's a bit like a poorly planned potluck, where everyone brings a dish that no one can quite agree upon, leaving folks with nothing but a judgmental look and potentially food poisoning. You may wonder, how did things escalate so quickly? Ah yes, imagine a game of hide and seek, but instead of seeking, leaders were out making grand statements mostly about how their respective deities were clearly the superior choice for granters of fate. It's as though every time a leader spoke, they summoned the spirit of competitive mountain climbing. "My mountains are taller, my gods are shinier." They went on brazenly, "We have ladders, we have chains," which, ironically, were themselves symbolic of the competing systems now inhibiting both empires. The notion of loyalty, let me tell you, it could rot like leftover sushi from last month's birthday party. Allies turned into enemies, quicker than a cat can chase a laser pointer, and families were more divided than a crowd at a chicken dance competition. Picture the streets filled with people, each footstep echoing with questions. Questions like, "Is my cross as tall as your altar? Does my sacrifice weigh more than yours? Are we having lamb chops or goat cheese for dinner?" After the feasting and the debates, you might fondly reminisce about the simpler times, when you were only concerned about fending off that pesky neighbor's goat instead of feuding deities. And yet, despite the heavy chains of faith and strife, the absurdity binds these two worlds together, an allegorical tapestry that weaves through contention and stubbornness, resulting in nothing more than an unintentional comedy of errors stretching across the annals of time. So, as you begin to drift towards sleep, take solace in the fact that history is often an intricate dance of misunderstanding, much like your attempt to follow that viral TikTok dance. The chains that bind us are rarely as significant as the laughter we can share over the silliness of it all. Good night, and sweet dreams, as you contemplate the peculiarities of history, where two worlds clashed only to discover a common thread of human folly, awkward, hilarious, and utterly familiar. ***, Chapter 21. A warm welcome in the desert of discontent. ***, hey guys. Tonight, we embark on a historical journey that's about as soothing as the sound of a gentle breeze over a cactus, while watching a sandstorm play tag with your neighbor's prized tomatoes. That's right. We're diving into the world of the early Islamic period, 632 CE to be exact, a time when a handful of nomads took the world by storm, not with a furious wind, but with a well-timed, "sorry, we're here to stay." So, what's on the agenda tonight? Well, get ready for laughter thicker than your grandma's gravy, as we explore how those local populations, like the Syrians and Copts, welcomed their new rulers, like they were, the last slice of pizza at a party, relieved and ready for a better slice of life. But before we get too comfy, let's reflect on what life might have been like back then, shall we? Were the locals thinking, finally, someone's here to loosen those pesky taxes? Or maybe they wondered, will these new guys respect my need for 5-hour debates about which way to face while praying? Did they have family gatherings punctuated by arguments over who had the best sacrifices? Was it the goats, or the occasional roast pigeon? The questions. Now, congratulations. You've just woken up in 632 CE, right on the cusp of a historical revolution where the patter of sandals on sand mingles with the applause of jaded locals ready for change. Picture it, the sun ascends quietly in the eastern sky, and a vibrantly colorful fresco greets your eyes, depicting locals rejoicing like they were the stars of the latest viral dance challenge. The Syrians and Copts are out, waving palm fronds, and it honestly looks like a Mediterranean beach party, just without sunblock or swimsuits for that matter. The atmosphere is charged, crackling like a static charge before a lightning storm, promising an energy you can feel in your bones. You hear the laughter rise like steam from freshly baked bread, blending with the chatter of townsfolk, strategizing over their upcoming 3-legged race weight. No, that's just the advanced Muslim forces. These hardy folks had arrived, and let me tell you, they brought with them not only fresh ideas, but perhaps a slightly overdue vacation vibe, like someone finally deciding to turn the couch into a bed and live it up. As these newly arrived nomadic troops swaggered in, they were greeted with waves of relief rather than cries of dismay. The locals began murmuring to one another, "Is that the sound of taxation rolling off like last week's almond paste?" Why yes, I think it is. It's as if they found the answer to a complex math problem. Subtract oppressive taxes, add a sprinkling of newfound joy, and voila, instant happiness. Amidst all this aspiring merriment, someone, a wise old sage with questionable sandals, decides to stand up and declare, "My fellow citizens, would you rather pay taxes to a distant emperor who uses your money to fund lavish parties, or to neighbors who are actually pretty decent at keeping the peace?" This statement lands with the grace of a freshly caught fish flopping out of a basket. The crowd collectively nods, as if they were stuck in an eternal nodding competition, deciding that yes, this sounds more appealing than mixing it up with taxation collectors wielding more parchment than personality. The arriving forces, likely feeling rather dapper with their new recruits and jubilant local supporters, probably thought, well, this feels easier than pulling a thorn out of your foot. Now, imagine the local market bustling as if it were a Black Friday sale, except instead of electronics, it's full of spices, silks, and some rather extravagant headscarves none of us would dare wear today. You meander through, captivated by the aroma of exotic fruits and baked goods, perhaps mumbling to yourself, "Someone, please tell me where to find the peace nearest hummus stand." Conversations bloom like wildflowers across the bazaar. Have you seen the new governor's cloak? No. But did you hear he offered 50% off on taxes? Imagine someone trying to top that with, "Yeah, but can he bake a flatbread to save his life?" Back in the day, everyone knew that tax policies were about as exciting as watching paint dry, while the arrival of their new leaders felt more like a long-lost friend, slipping through your front door with armfuls of pizza and stories from the cheap seats of history. The thrill of change was contagious, a bit like catching a cold from your sneezy toddler, but much more welcoming. As waves of excitement ripple through the local population, they start practicing for impromptu celebrations. With drums crafted from old barrels, and a cacophony of laughter that turns heads quicker than a cat watching a laser pointer, they throw open their doors and say, "Come, take part in our feast. We are free from ominous tax burdens, we needn't skimp on the bread." So, as you drift softly into the past, cradled by the comfort and chaos of this vibrant period, remember that even in the driest of deserts, and with Muslim nomads rising to power, laughter and community can pave the way for thriving joy, even amidst the confusion. Now take a deep breath, smile knowingly, and let those delightful images of jubilant locals dance just beyond your eyelids. The world was changing, folks, and it was about to become mildly interesting indeed. Asterisk, asterisk, chapter 22, the tax collector's square dance, asterisk, asterisk. Welcome back, dear listener. As we continue our journey through the vibrant tapestry of 632 CE, let's ease into the bustling marketplace where the air is thick with the scents of ripe figs and questionable hygiene. Picture this: a tax collector, the sort of fellow who could easily be mistaken for a shady sidekick in a medieval heist movie, stands confidently amidst a cacophony of bargaining voices, squawking chickens, and the intermittent sound of wooden carts creaking like an out-of-tune orchestra. Imagine the tax collector's outfit. It's functionally fabulous, like a prepared adventurer who just finished a game of find the best accessories in the dustbin. He wears a flowing robe that's the color of slightly overripe olives, a belt that's more decorative than useful, and an expression that screams, "Trust me, I'm here to help you, for a small fee." You can practically hear the locals humming that ever so catchy tune. Taxes, the better kind. But let's rewind for a second. Ever found yourself wondering what was going through the mind of a friendly tax collector? Picture yourself, a diligent farmer, let's call him Joe, standing nervously with a small pouch clinking against the half of a bag of nuts you saved for your daughter's birthday. Were you thinking, I hope he understands that my prize-winning goat is worth more than your whole family heirloom collection? Or, perhaps, I could pay you in bread, but only if you promise to throw in a side of respect. Let's dive a bit deeper, shall we? So there stands Joe, nervously exploring his options with less understanding than a chicken at a magic show. And what does he have to offer? A handful of grain? A promise of peace? Or maybe just a nice, big, "Don't tax me too much" sign scrawled on the back of an old parchment that resembles a goose's last will and testament. A bustling scene unfolds as the tax collector greets the local farmers, his voice as comforting as an old blanket that kind of smells like a barn. "Fear not, gentle farmers. For a small sum of jizya, I promise protection for your crops and respect for your rituals. All I'm asking for is a modest fine for your right to exist peacefully." Think of it as, a cover charge for the exclusive club of living. What's jizya, you ask? Don't worry, it's not a new app for tracking your kale intake. It's a poll tax, a contribution to the community that came with an unforeseen perk. The assurance that you wouldn't be brazenly attacked while trying to milk your cows. The locals, well versed in the art of eye-rolling, begin to huddle in small groups, whispering less than honorable things about the tax collector's auntie and her penchant for mending too many cloaks on a Saturday. "I mean, he's not so bad," one farmer muses, "as long as he doesn't take my last loaf and talks to the goats." Respectfully, the negotiation gets underway. Naturally, Joe would prefer a sum equivalent to 24 apples and a handful of good jokes about misfortune, because let's be real, it's better to deal with taxes humorously than as a dismal reality check. The tax collector raises an eyebrow, suggesting perhaps another quantity might suffice. How about half a goat and your best dad jokes? The crowd ohs and ahs, caught up in the whimsical banter. You can almost hear someone in the back. Did he just say dad jokes? Great. Now we can tax our sense of humor as well. As the sun climbs higher, the local vibe shifts from disbelief to acceptance, and maybe even a little admiration for this clever taxation master. And slowly, community bonds grow stronger than the jizya tax is high. The tax is turned into something akin to friendship bracelets, except these were made of bits of metal and the promise not to raid your fields. By now, the common folk are beginning to think, maybe this isn't so bad after all. Can it get any better? Absolutely. Because next, someone suggests a communal feast to celebrate this marvelous arrangement, a festival of local delights. Who knew a tax collector could double as a social catalyst? "Let's invite him," someone shouts. And suddenly, it's like a sitcom in action, as locals scurry around to prepare food and decorate with whatever they can find. Wildflowers, goat hair, maybe even an old cartwheel, if it gives enough dramatic flair. And as the sun begins to set, casting golden hues over the village, laughter fills the air, mingling with the delightful aroma of roasted lamb and spiced lentils. A celebration like no other unfolds the community bonds tighter than a drum. A reminder that the world outside may have its perils, but within their joyful squabbles and humorous exchanges, there's warmth aplenty. So, as you slip into dreams, think about this old tax collector, fellow who didn't just collect dues but perhaps sowed seeds of camaraderie. If taxes can bring baked goods and laughter, maybe they're not all bad. But should you find yourself in 632 CE, do remember to haggle like your life depends on it, because, who knows, you might just end up with a free kebab if you're convincing enough. And that, dear listener, is how one can find laughter in the taxing moments of life, except, perhaps, during the tax season. Asterisk. Asterisk. Chapter 23. The Crimson Tide of Expansion. Asterisk. Asterisk. Hey guys, welcome back to this wonderfully weird journey through history, where we dive into the world of conquests as mysterious as your last online order. Tonight, we're sailing to a time that's got more hustle than a modern-day delivery driver in a city teeming with traffic. The 7th century, when a handful of nomadic folks, basically your overly enthusiastic camping friends, decided to conquer most of the known world, faster than you can say, "Uh-oh, did I leave the stove on?" Now, before we dive in, just a gentle nudge to like, subscribe, and comment only if you find us mildly amusing, of course. No pressure, I promise. So, are you ready to snuggle in, dim the lights, and put your feet up? Imagine trying to make deals under the blazing sun, while hoping the local goat doesn't wander in and stare at you like you owe it money. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be a nomad, juggling life on the road while managing livestock and trying to keep your hair from turning into an unintentional bird's nest? Or maybe you're pondering how they mapped out their epic expeditions before GPS. Did they actually carry around an abacus made of stones and hope for the best? Well, congratulations. You've just woken up in 632 CE, smack dab in the middle of the Rashidun Caliphate, a rapidly expanding realm, spurred on by visionaries and motivated by a somewhat relentless zeal. Picture it. Sand dunes stretching further than your worst Monday morning plans. Brilliantly colored tents that could only belong in a nomadic version of a home makeover show, and the smell of roasted meat wafting through the air like an alluring invitation for dinner. Ah, nomadic life. Now, let's talk expansion, shall we? As those tents pop up and down across the landscape like an impromptu camping trip, the leaders of these folks, impressive at least about as far removed from your buddy who thinks camping means setting up an air mattress in your living room, decided they were a bit tired of simply moving around for fresh pastures. They decided to turn their attention from munching on simple meals to conquering lands faster than a hungry toddler on a sugar rush. Imagine a vast, antique map, pale and worn, unfurling like your grandmother's face when she starts reminiscing about the good old days, overlaid with a spreading crimson tide representing the Islamic Caliphate's rapid territorial expansion. This map had to look more dramatic than a climactic scene in a soap opera, each new territory represented by a thrilling splash of red. It was a race that made Olympic track and field events look like an afternoon stroll through the park. While you settle into this historical adventure, let's not forget the players, if you can call them that. You have the early Muslim conquests, armed not just with faith but with the types of fervor that generally leads to really good life choices, as long as you consider conquering to be one of them. Armed with both purpose and a surprisingly sturdy set of sandals, these nomads swept through regions with the majestic flair of a well-rehearsed flash mob. Why did they expand like emotional support air mattresses? Because, much like a poorly planned buffet, there was plenty of space, and, remarkably, they found people a bit too comfortable with their existing arrangements. Partitions fell faster than your resolve to go to that Monday core class, with each victory chased by the scent of victory. Think roasted lamb, spiced rice, and the sweet satisfaction of being able to say, "Yeah, we just took that whole city over. How was your day?" It's like watching someone secure the last donut at the office. The room may be loud with requests for peace, but once that donut's gone, any sense of camaraderie is tossed out the window. And so it began, the Rashidun Caliphate, expanding at a speed that today's common Uber driver might find utterly intimidating. Now, is conquering one thing, but let's not gloss over the daily challenges these newly minted conquerors faced. Forget about hangry battles for supremacy. Imagine trying to coordinate troop movements when your map might as well have been drawn by a toddler with crayons. Hey, guys, should we turn left at the tree that looks like a duck or the one that looks less like a duck? Tough call. Meanwhile, back at home, the locals must have been seriously confused. Imagine waking up, pouring your morning tea, and discovering that 3 tents filled with warriors have set up camp next to your prized herb garden. Priceless, right? Great. First the neighbors borrow my ladder, and now this. What next? A parade. But you see, dear ancient observer, what this all leads to is a complex tapestry of cultural exchange. Those conquering nomads didn't just come waving swords, demanding tribute. No, they brought ideas, philosophies, and, most importantly, recipes. for epic dishes. Admittedly, there was a little bit of, "you will now honor my ways or else," but they were more just trying to spark an innovative culinary table discussion. So, as we drift into the waning hours of your historic contemplation, a gentle reminder that history is rarely dull, especially when wrapped in a looser interpretation of the term, commerce. Understand that these nomads turned conquerors were more than war machines. They signaled the dawn of a new era. They flourished through humor, humility, and perhaps a slightly awkward dance or two. And as you nestle into sleep, think about all the moments that lead to triumphs. Sometimes they happen when you're least expecting it, just like that time your cat decided to take a somersault off the couch. Who knew history could provide such sparkle? Dream of red tides sweeping over dusty plains, of final battles fueled by stomach grumbles that echo like distant thunder. May you wake up rested, with a smile, reminiscent of that time you conquered an obstacle course in your mind, and your rich new favorite dream of nomadic triumph and mealtime debates. Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 24. The Battle That Time Forgot. Yarmouk Unleashed, asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys, welcome back. If you thought that last chapter had enough chaos to make a squirrel on caffeine look calm, wait till you sink your ears into tonight's tale, a monumental face-off that has all the grace of a cat on a hot tin roof. Picture it, a scene where wildly ambitious nomads decided to take their very newest hobby, conquering, to a whole new level, right across the banks of the Yarmouk River. Not a peaceful picnic, my friends, but more of a reenactment of every family holiday gone wrong. Before we dive in, let's take a brief moment for a gentle reminder to like, subscribe, and maybe drop a comment about the wild things you'd do to keep a goat from photobombing your family picture, if you find us genuinely entertaining, that is. And now, as you get cozy, dim the lights, and maybe grab a warm drink, preferably not goat milk, unless you're feeling adventurous. Let's consider the existential questions this era poses. Ever thought about how bewildering it must have been to wake up one morning and find a whole army setting up right in your backyard? I'm sorry, but you're putting your tent where? Or how about if the war strategies were akin to figuring out how to rearrange your furniture to maximize limited space? Can you imagine trying to negotiate peace with nothing but a handful of dried figs and a fresh loaf of incomprehensibly stale bread? Well, congratulations. You've just woken up in 636 CE, right smack in the middle of the epic showdown at the Yarmouk River, where the fabric of the ancient world was about to get a mighty fine stitching, and quite possibly, some fraying at the edges. Now, let's set the scene. Picture the Yarmouk. It's a picturesque river, just begging for a leisurely float down its gentle waters. And yet, my friend, instead of sipping chamomile tea and soaking up the sun, there's a tension in the air. It's like the moment before your family plays charades, and someone inevitably tries to act out a cow instead of a phantom menace. On one side, you have the Byzantine forces, polished and ready, a bit like overzealous contestants on a home cooking show armed with pots and pans. And, on the other side, the Muslim army, fresh with zeal and ready to roll, kind of like that cousin who always shows up to weddings with party tricks, and perhaps, slightly too much enthusiasm. You can almost hear the battle cries whipping up a delightful chaos in the air, shouting louder than your neighbor's lawnmower at 6 a.m. on a Sunday. The Byzantine forces assembled like a well-rehearsed flash mob, with lines, formations, and strategies, looking very dapper but perhaps not quite ready for the kind of spontaneous chaos that was about to unfold. Yet, what came next was akin to watching a slow-motion train wreck, but in a delightful, mildly horrifying way. The ordering of troops, the meticulous arrangement of shields, it all crumbled under the pressure of the brave Muslim forces, charging like a flash flood into a low-lying area, tumbling into the unsuspecting Byzantine ranks. It's almost poetic, really, except that there wasn't a single bard left to write it down. And unlike your aunt's frantic explanations over family dinner, this was no calm discussion gone awry. The battle played out with the frantic elegance of someone trying to juggle flaming torches at a county fair. Now, the Byzantine commanders probably had a massive plan in place, and imagine one of them grumbling, "Okay, listen folks, it shouldn't have come to this. Make sure the cavalry holds their ground and, oh, wait, where did half of them go?" Up in the hills, you had early Muslim riders charging down like they were auditioning for some extreme sport complete with wind in the hair styling and sounds reminiscent of 1,000 flying monkeys. And just like that first sip of coffee on a Monday morning, surprising, invigorating, and just a touch chaotic, the battle erupted in a frenzy of swords, clinking, and the sounds of scurrying foot soldiers, not unlike a frantic race to the last slice of pizza at your favorite joint. Histories tell tales of the chaos that unfolded, dust clouds rising as if nature itself was unsure who to support. The clash rang out a cacophony sharp enough to wake the ancient gods from their slumber, no doubt quickly returning to say, "Can we get a bit more peaceful here, folks?" But alas, there was no turning back. The tide was turning, not quite as impressively as an iceberg, but certainly not in favor of the Byzantines, who were falling faster than my resolve to indulge in a salad after a week of pizza. Now, let's check in on our Byzantine heroes, who might have felt a bit like comic book characters faced with a villain they didn't see coming. Wait, who invited the cavalry? If we had a time machine, I could only imagine the bewildered looks on their faces, because folks, when your enemy comes at you with an enthusiasm, usually reserved for the opening day of a carnival, there's not a lot that one could do. By the day's end, the riverside would bear the scars of a massive clash, mud mixed with history and the faint echoes of battle cries that would resonate throughout time. It was a decisive victory for the Muslim army. They danced right into the annals of history like the surprise ending to your favorite film. And as you slip into slumber, think about this. Hundreds of years from now, historians may argue about whose victory it was. Much like the office debate about who brought the best snacks to the last meeting. Remember, dear dreamer, that sometimes the stories we leave behind matter more than the battles we fought. So, while the archers aim to hit their mark, some may have just been aiming to avoid cleaning up afterward. Sleep tight, and remember that history, with all its quirky little nuances, unfolds in ways that can surprise you, just like finding that favorite snack still hiding in your cupboard when you're feeling snacky at midnight. Rest your weary head, and let those whispers of time carry you away. *** Chapter 25. The sun sets on the old world, just like your last bright idea. ***. Hey guys, welcome back. If you thought last week's historical shenanigans felt like a raccoon rummaging through a picnic basket at a family reunion, wait until we dive into tonight's adventure, a swirling saga that is more about a handful of nomads conquering empires than your uncle's loss at poker. Picture this. It's now the year 632 CE, and civilizations are, well, let's just say they're in a bit of a midlife crisis. You know, like when you find yourself staring at your sneakers and wondering if they even match your sweatpants anymore. Tonight, we're peering through the sands of time, where a powerful hand emerges, not unlike that annoying person at Costco who just has to reach for that final sample before you can. This hand, shattering a Byzantine laurel crown and a Sasanian tiara, as if they were made of the same flimsy plastic as those cheap birthday party hats. So sit back, grab a reusable water bottle, and prepare to soak in some absurd historical wisdom. But only if you actually enjoy this. Please, feel free to like, subscribe, and maybe leave us a comment on the most embarrassing birthday party you've ever had. Now, let's dim those lights. Get cozy, because let's face it, this is no time to be awkwardly perched on the edge of the couch and contemplate. How did folks back then feel when their once proud civilizations crumbled faster than your breakfast toast? Did they sit around wondering why nobody brought extra napkins to the end of the world? Ever thought about how one day you're sipping tea under a laurel tree, and the next, you're entangled in a military frenzy started over who gets the last slice of baklava? Congratulations. You've just woken up in 632 CE, right in the whirlwind of political chaos where empires seem to have forgotten one crucial detail. Don't put all your crowns in one basket. Let's talk about our challengers, the Byzantines and the Sasanians, who honestly thought they were the hottest ticket in town. Spoiler alert, they weren't. Picture the Byzantine Empire. They were sporting military tactics as polished as a brand new set of golf clubs and an ego to match. Think about it, have you tried impressing your friends with your immaculate collection of DVD box sets? That's the Byzantine army, trying to impress the neighbors with their shiny helmets and intricate armor. But one evening, something strange began to brew beneath the sands of the Arabian Peninsula. It was like the urgent whisper every parent has when they realize their kids have suddenly turned a quiet afternoon into a full-scale construction project involving every toy in the house. Meanwhile, the Sasanian Empire, the other cool kid on the block, thought they had everything figured out. Armed with a flair for theatrics, their warriors strutted about like they were auditioning for a medieval talent show. But let's face it, both empires were adjusting their crowns, blissfully unaware that a fierce weather front of camel-riding nomads was heading their way. It was like planning your big bake sale, only to discover the oven's broken and the cat has made off with the ingredients. Now, let's roll up our sleeves and get to the gritty reality of the battlefield where strategy meets chaos, and the scent of desperation hangs in the air like last week's leftovers. You feel that? It's the electric buzz of impending doom as thousands of men assembled, get this, all around the Yarmouk River, like some over-enthusiastic family reunion under the name of a multicultural festival gone wrong. Picture the scene, generals, pacing like they're trying to land a plane, while soldiers waited for the signal to charge, probably debating whether to bring their swords, or just give a really good motivational speech instead. And just as the sun began to dip beyond the horizon, casting ominous shadows, it became abundantly clear that the nomads, those intrepid souls riding their camels, like they were competing in the next season of a reality show, were no picnic. You could almost hear their battle cry, which in modern terms sounds a lot like an intense, "Let's go team, we got this," mixed with a bit of confusion over who forgot to pack the snacks. But those Byzantine troops, bless their hearts, embarked onto the battlefield not with the leading-edge tactics of their forebears, but with manners so refined that you half expected them to ask their opponents if they'd like to join them for tea first. I mean, who doesn't love a good round of polite warfare, right? Let's pause all this aggression for a moment. Would a biscuit go down well with that sword threat? As the battle commenced, imagine the sounds of clash and thud, the scent of sweat mingling with the dust kicked up by charging horse hooves. It's a sight to see or hear, in a way that gives you the creeping sensation that someone forgot to send a thank you card for a really inappropriate wedding gift. And as the fierce combat ensued, you might ponder, is this really a fight for glory, or the world's most chaotic game of capture the flag? As the day wore on, the sands of the Yarmouk began to absorb the tales of bravery and blunders, much like how your couch absorbs the weight of your existential dread during your Sunday nap. The Byzantine armies were probably shaking their heads and muttering about how they should have had a better plan than just glancing at the map and saying, "That looks good. Let's go with that." But folks, here's the rub. Sometimes in life, the plans you make unravel quicker than a toddler's craft project gone wrong. Thus, with the dust settling over a battlefield that would echo through history, we find that these so-called invincible empires faltered before the relentless spirit of the quirky nomads, who triumphantly rode off into the sunset, likely arguing over whose turn it was to carry the leftover armor. And while histories are written and battles are remembered, sometimes it's the stories left on the battlefield that matter more than the victor. So, cozy up and drift off, dear dreamer, because history is often an absurd tapestry of victories and losses, much like the miscellaneous laundry that gets left all around your home. Embrace the whimsy of time. As you close your eyes, let those little echoes of the past carry you off, gently, like a feather on the breeze, or that cat that always commandeers your pillow. Sleep tight, and remember, conquering the world is not just about strategy. Sometimes it's about finding the best snacks on the way. And now, as we leave behind the dust, wind, hardship, and unlikely triumphs of these nomadic worlds, let your breath settle into something soft and steady. The past drifts behind us like a worn traveling cloak, faded and frayed, yet still warm from the long journey it carried. Tonight, we walked beside wanderers who crossed landscapes that tried their best to break them. We watched families move with the seasons, sheltering under tents held up by little more than rope, determination, and habit. We felt the sting of desert heat, the chill of open steppes, and the strange, almost humorous absurdity of surviving days where everything, wind, land, hunger, other humans seemed to have a personal vendetta. And through all of it, they endured, riding farther than they should have, carrying more than they wanted to, facing storms, battles, dust, drought, and the quiet, unforgiving emptiness of the horizon. Not with glory, not with comfort, but with a resilience so steady it almost feels unreal to us now. So honor them, the families who carried their whole world on horseback, the warriors shaped by wind and endurance, the leaders who rose not from palaces, but from the raw edges of survival. And then, look gently at your own life. You have walls that don't flap in the wind. You have water you don't have to chase or pray for. You have warmth, food, and a bed that stays in one place instead of blowing away during a storm. You have the comfort of stillness, a luxury many of them never knew. Let your shoulders loosen, let your thoughts grow quiet. Let the weight of the day slip off you like dust shaken from a traveler's cloak. You're safe. You're warm. You've journeyed far enough for tonight. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and drift gently into